A young man with striking golden eyes reflects on the nature of a life-altering encounter. For him, this pivotal moment came in the form of a metallic slime. In a rocky, cavernous space, he crouches before a small, shimmering blob on the ground, questioning its very existence. The scene shifts to a news broadcast from above Tokyo. A report details the emergence of a large sinkhole near Harumi Pier, which the authorities are treating as a new dungeon. This broadcast plays on a television in a dimly lit room, watched by Yuma, a second-year high school student, as he relaxes on his couch. The news anchor states that this is the 6th dungeon to appear in Japan and is likely not a small-scale one, prompting an official investigation. Yuma's attention shifts to his phone, where a charismatic streamer with dreadlocks and sunglasses flashes a peace sign, enthusiastically kicking off their dungeon channel broadcast. The streamer's video shows them deep within Sapporo's white dungeon, announcing they have reached the 18th floor. They gesture towards the surroundings, pointing out the abundance of fairy-like monsters flitting about the crystalline landscape. With a dramatic flourish, they declare their intention to use thunder magic on one of the creatures. A powerful bolt of lightning erupts from their hand, striking a monster in a brilliant flash. The successful hunt yields a prize, a magic gem. The streamer celebrates their good fortune. Back in his room, Yuma's expression darkens as he reads that a pure white moonstone like the one just found is worth 1.4 million yen. He scoffs internally at the absurdity of it all. It has been 7 years since the dungeons first emerged. Initially, these underground labyrinths were a source of widespread fear and anxiety. Now, however, they are understood differently. The unknown creatures within the dungeons are the source of magic gems, valuable resources for which magic can be drawn and utilized. As he eats an ice pop, Yuma continues his somber reflection. Even when something so fantastical and unrealistic appears in the world, only a select few people seem to be able to profit from it. His thoughts drift to the structure of this new world. Success seems reserved for the popular who can attract sponsors, the physically gifted recognized by the government, or those with the backing of powerful corporations. He collapses onto his bed, groaning with frustration. It all feels so unfair. In his view, nothing in the world truly changes, and an ordinary person like him never even gets a chance. As he lies there stewing in his thoughts, a sudden, sharp barking from outside pierces the quiet. The barking intensifies. It's his dog, Mamizu, who is usually so docile. Alarmed by the awful racket, Yuma rises to investigate. He peers out the door, his expression tense. He wonders aloud if someone has entered the yard. Slipping into a pair of clogs to go outside, his mind sinks back into melancholy. It feels as though no matter how hard he tries, nothing good ever comes of it. He walks into the yard with Mamizu, continuing his internal monologue of self-defeat. He believes he isn't smart or talented, and so his life hasn't amounted to much. This was the pervasive feeling that colored his existence, a constant sense of inadequacy. That feeling had been his reality until this moment. Before him, in the middle of his own yard, is a large, perfectly circular, dark hole in the ground. As he stands at the edge of the pit, a hand suddenly appears in the foreground. With a click, a flashlight switches on, its beam cutting through the darkness to illuminate the entrance of what appears to be a tunnel. He crouched at the edge of the opening, flashlight in hand. It wasn't a sinkhole, but a strange cave. He wondered what could be inside. From the darkness within, a creature emerged. A round, gelatinous mass with two large, glowing white eyes. Staring at the small, quivering creature, he could only mutter in confusion. What is this? Having retreated to his home, he sat startled on his couch, looking at an image on his phone that perfectly matched the creature he had just seen. His search brought him to a Monster Wiki page for slime. It described them as having translucent bodies in colors like blue, aqua, red, or green. He realized the one in the hole was different, questioning if it was a slime at all. Digging deeper, he found an article from Overseas Dungeon News. It reported a few sightings in America of very quick and tough slimes with a metallic color, though the details were unclear due to blurry footage. He concluded it must be a slime after all. The article then revealed a critical piece of information. There were no reported cases of this metal slime ever being subjugated. The realization struck him with immense force. If he defeated the one in the hole, he would be the first in the world. He tried to push the thought away, shaking his head in disbelief. It was just a small hole, he reasoned. It couldn't possibly be a real dungeon. His internal debate was interrupted by a video playing on his phone. A streamer with dark glasses warned that the profession of a dungeon explorer is certainly a dangerous one. But the streamer immediately pivoted, showing an image of glittering jewels. The reward for that danger, he explained, was magic gems that trade for many millions of yen. His mind raced with the possibilities, envisioning the triumphant declaration of a popular streamer, a dream come true. Steeled by this fantasy of fortune, he stood before the hole in his yard, hammer in hand. He reasoned that the space was tiny and narrow, so the creature shouldn't be dangerous or have any room to escape. He cautiously entered the shallow pit, crouching before the metallic slime and raising his weapon for the decisive blow. The hammer bounced off with a sharp ting, its surface completely unharmed. The slime was incredibly hard. It began to leap erratically around the confined space, and he yelled in frustration for it to stop jumping all over the place. His command went unheeded. In the next moment, the creature slammed directly into his face with a solid whack. Defeated, he limped back inside and collapsed onto his couch. The encounter had been a complete ordeal. Picking up his phone, he began to research, wondering aloud how he could possibly defeat something like that. He warned a whimpering Mamizu to stay away from the hole, explaining that a vicious and dangerous monster was in there. His search results, however, were baffling. An article on slime traits stated that they are very weak monsters, easily defeated even by a child. The information was so contrary to his experience that he could only stare in disbelief, thinking it was all lies. He kept reading, completely bewildered. The text claimed that slimes move slowly, no swifter than a human, and that physical attacks are enough to defeat them, making the danger level nil. He couldn't reconcile this with what had just happened. A further detail only deepened his confusion. The article noted that against powerful monsters in the depths of a dungeon, physical attacks are ineffective and only magic can prevail. But the hole in his yard was ridiculously shallow, only 1 meter deep. He sighed, accepting that magic was not an option for him. But then a new thought struck him. If the creature was truly metallic, perhaps fire would be effective. A glimmer of hope appeared. Maybe he could defeat it by burning it, even without any magical ability. Armed with this new plan, he retrieved a gas burner from his home. He approached the hole cautiously, torch in hand, reminding himself to move slowly and carefully so as not to startle the creature. His caution was met with frustration as the slime began to move erratically. He gritted his teeth, demanding it to stay still as the metal nozzle of the burner clanged against its unyielding surface. In a sudden burst of movement, the creature lashed out, striking him hard. He cried out in pain from the unexpected blow. The attempt ended in complete failure. Defeated, he lay sprawled on his living room floor, enveloped in gloom. He felt utterly spent. He considered just boarding up the hole and pretending he never saw it. The alternative was to report it, as the authorities advised for dungeons appearing on private property. But the thought of dealing with the police or government felt like an immense hassle. He scoffed at the idea of this being some grand opportunity. He'd known it was too good to be true. If he had never found that hole, he wouldn't be dealing with any of this pain and trouble. His despair deepened into a familiar pattern of thought. It seemed to him that nothing had ever gone well in his life. It had always been this way, a constant struggle. He was left to wonder why he always had to suffer. His thoughts turned back to the source of his current misery, the small, now covered hole in his yard. He sat alone in his home, staring blankly out the window, lost in a sea of resignation. He resolved that this was why he should stop getting involved, a weary resignation settling upon him. Despite this, a question lingered in his mind. Why was he still so invested in this venture? Then, a sudden burst of inspiration struck. He scrambled through his closet, rustling through his belongings until, with a triumphant cry, he announced that he had found it. Holding a can of cooling spray, a new plan formed. He reasoned that if an insect spray could immobilize bugs by chilling them, the same principle might apply to a metal slime. His strategy was twofold. First, use the cooling spray to stop its movement, and then, knowing that metal becomes brittle when cooled, immediately heat it with a gas burner to induce thermal shock and shatter. His expression hardened with resolve. He swore to himself that if this attempt failed, he would give up completely. Moments later, he stood once more before the uncovered dungeon entrance, tools in hand, declaring it his final attempt. He peered into the darkness, noting that the slime remained deep within the cave. There was no choice but to go in after it. He cautiously entered the cramped space, crouching before the creature and setting down his equipment. Without hesitation, he unleashed the cooling spray. The slime startled as a layer of frost rapidly formed on its surface. With the first step complete, he reached for the burner. He unleashes the gas burner, but is shocked as the canister erupts with a burst of flammable gas, creating a much larger and more dangerous flame than he anticipated. He recoils from the intense heat, realizing it was a close call. Fortunately, the gas is staying contained at the back of the hollowed-out space, presenting him with the perfect opportunity to strike. He realizes with excitement that his plan is working. The rapid temperature change should have made the creature fragile enough to shatter. He spots the hammer he brought with him initially, identifying it as the tool to finish the job. With a determined cry, he raises a heavy flashlight high above his head, convinced that this strike will be the one to finally end it. The impact connects with a sharp crack, and the slime's frozen metallic shell shatters into pieces. He stares at the remnants, a look of disbelief on his face. He did it. His relief quickly fades to disappointment. He lets out a hollow laugh as he surveys the empty cave. The creature dropped nothing at all, not even a magic gem. Stepping out of the dungeon, he stretches under the open sky. Though there was no reward, he accepts the outcome, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment for having finally succeeded. Mamizu greets him with a welcoming bark. Yuma, feeling beaten, tells his companion that he's finally done with the creature and will just cover the entrance with cardboard. And so, the fierce struggle between Yuma Mitaka and the strange slime came to an end. The city skyline rests peacefully under a starry night sky. In his bedroom, Yuma Mitaka is startled awake by a persistent rattling sound coming from the direction of his closet. His mother calls out to him, noting that Mamizu has been yapping since the morning. She asks Yuma to go see what the commotion is about, as the dog continues to growl and bark. He gets up to investigate and finds Mamizu barking directly at the sealed entrance to the dungeon. As Yuma approaches the boarded-up space, he realizes with a jolt what must be happening. Peering into the now open passage, he sees a familiar sight. The metal slime, his old friend, has returned. The perspective shifts across the globe to the bustling metropolis of Tel Aviv, Israel. Within the city lies the headquarters of the International Dungeon Research Organization, also known as the IDR. Inside, a man with long, light-colored hair and glasses is identified as dungeon research expert Ethan Noble. An unseen person approaches, stating they've finally found it. He turns to his assistant, Clark Griffin, and remarks that no matter how many times he sees it, he never gets sick of looking. His gaze is fixed on a huge stone tablet. He explains to Clark that it was discovered on the middle floors of Orpheus, the world's deepest dungeon, and draws attention to the hieroglyphs inscribed upon it. With a confident smile, Ethan prepares to reveal the tablet's message. He stands before the ancient, cracked tablet, arms outstretched as if presenting a grand, terrible revelation. With a grim expression, he reveals the prophecy etched into its surface. When a king of monsters, whose location is indicated on the tablet itself, awakens, the world will be set upon a path to utter destruction. Yuma Mitaka lets out a long, weary sigh, his expression a mixture of exhaustion and annoyance. He walks alone, lost in thought about the grinding monotony of his days, an endless cycle of slimes. As he wonders what is happening with his life, a cheerful voice suddenly calls out to him from behind. The voice belongs to his childhood friend, Keed Ichinos, who waves at him. She playfully teases him for being startled by a greeting from a beauty. Keed, a fellow third-year high school student, then remarks on how he's been arriving at school unusually early lately. Yuma defensively insists that's not the reason. As they continue on their way, she asks him if he knows what their acquaintance, Luie, has been up to. He admits he doesn't, explaining that they're in different classes now, though they were close when they were children. She then reveals Luie's ambition, to find work in the dungeoneering business in the future. The news stuns Yuma, who can only exclaim in disbelief. His shock lingers as they walk. Keed comments that dungeoneering seems like an unstable career path, and that she hadn't realized Luie was the type to follow trends. She turns to him with a look of slight concern, asking if he was truly unaware that the dungeoneering business is booming right now. Keed explains further, mentioning that there are various types of dungeons. Specifically, she notes that magic gems from the White Dungeon can apparently treat injuries and illnesses, which is why so many healthcare companies are getting involved. Yuma, however, seems completely uninterested in the specifics. She remarks on how amazing Luie is for having such a clear future in mind. Then, she directs her attention fully to Yuma, asking him a pointed question. Has he thought about what he'll do in the future? The query catches him off guard as he processes the idea of dungeoneering being tied to a popular business like healthcare. He considers his future, a faint, determined smile on his face. He is thinking about it, in his own way, and walks forward into an uncertain but self-determined path. His research leads him to an informational program, Dungeon Trivia for Goodies. The show's mascot hosts explain a core mechanic of dungeons. Monsters inside them respawn on a regular basis. The hosts excitedly suggest this means one can grind from magic gems to their heart's content. However, they immediately temper this excitement with a harsh fact. The drop rate for these gems is only about 1%. Putting this knowledge into practice, Yuma stands at the entrance to a rocky dungeon. He sighs in frustration as a small, gelatinous slime monster appears once again, confirming the tedious nature of this grind. He begins to calculate the odds based on this 1% chance. A simple thought occurs to him. If he kills one slime a day, he should get a gem in 100 days. He then considers that a rare magic gem from a rare slime could be worth $1 million. The realization of earning $1 million every 100 days excites him. But the statistical reality quickly sets in. There's a significant chance of getting nothing at all. Despite the daunting odds, he tries to remain optimistic, clenching his fist and telling himself that a get-rich-easy future is still ahead of him. He throws himself into the work, believing $1 million is right under his nose and that he has his whole life to achieve it. At that time, however, he had not yet realized the true difficulty of his chosen path. The harsh reality of the grind becomes clear. He smashes slime after slime with a hammer, but each one dissolves into nothing, leaving no reward. He has no luck. Kneeling in exhaustion, he watches another defeated monster vanish without a trace. He cries out in frustration that the magic gems simply are not dropping. The financial strain of his new venture becomes painfully apparent. He complains to his dog, Mamizu, that all his pocket money is disappearing into supplies like cooling sprays and gas burners. Wobbling with fatigue, he admits the task is far too harsh. He lay on the floor, utterly dejected, telling Mamizu that it was no use. He was sick of the constant failure. But as the small dog licked his face, a spark of resolve returned. He couldn't lose heart now. He thanked his companion for the encouragement. This resolve, however, was fragile. He looked at one of the cooling spray cans, a symbol of his fruitless efforts, waking up early, pouring his pocket money down the drain. He reminded himself it was all for the dream of earning $1 million. Just then, a voice called out his name. The voice was a memory, a question from Key to Chinos that echoed in his mind. Have you thought about what you'll do in the future? Her question lingered as he stood alone, the cooling sprays feeling heavy in his hands. He admitted to himself that he didn't really know anything about his future. This uncertainty gave rise to a deeper doubt. He looked down, questioning if he was truly okay with his current path. As he wrestled with his thoughts, time passed. Snow began to fall over the city, heralding a change in season. By February 2nd, the school hallways were buzzing with a different kind of energy. Awasama Ruie, Yuma's childhood friend, spotted him down the hall and called out a cheerful good morning. Yuma, who had just been talking about someone, turned in surprise. He immediately noticed the large, decorated bag she was carrying, remarking on the impressive chocolates inside and asking about her plans for them. A sudden, flustered realization struck him. It was Valentine's Day, a fact he'd completely forgotten. Ruie simply smiled, explaining she would share them with her family. She then turned to him with a kind offer, asking if he would like some. Yuma reacted with surprising intensity, shouting that he didn't even like sweets. His outburst didn't seem to faze her, as her thoughts were already on another topic. She revealed her ambition to find work in the dungeoneering business in the future. The statement caught Yuma off guard, making him wonder if he should ask the person himself about it. He is taken aback when Key Chinos asks if he received chocolates from her. He replies with a confused huh, adding that he hasn't gotten any from her in the past few years. She clarifies that she was just wondering, since it seems he gets them every year. The implication leaves him wide-eyed and speechless. Before he can formulate a response, she notes that class is starting soon and that she should be going, leaving him to ponder her words. After the final class bell rings, he waits by the school gate, pacing back and forth. Suddenly, he is struck from behind with a sharp ow. The one who struck him is Keed. She chides him, explaining that it's his fault for trying to go home so quickly when she was planning to give him chocolates. He yelps in protest, telling her not to hit his rear. He realizes the truth. He wasn't actually going home. He admits to himself that he was loitering around the school gates specifically because he wanted to run into Key. Having gotten his attention, she holds out a small, decorated bag. "Here, my chocolates," she says, then asks if he's getting them from anyone else this year. He takes the gift, blushing slightly as he offers a quiet thank you. She immediately demands to see any others he might have, but he retorts with irritation, telling her not to just assume he's received one or two others. His defensive reaction makes her laugh brightly. "You're welcome," she says with a wide, cheerful grin. With the exchange complete, they part ways. She waves goodbye, calling out, "Well, see ya," as he walks on ahead. He stammers, flustered by her question. He had heard she doesn't give chocolates to Ruie, so he presses her, demanding to know why she chose to give them to him instead. In response, Keed simply states that the reason should be obvious. She elaborates with a smile, explaining that since Ruie gets plenty of chocolates from others, it would be unfortunate if Yuma didn't receive any. As a childhood friend, she feels a responsibility to keep things balanced between them. The memory of her reasoning sends a jolt of fury through Yuma at a later time. In a completely different setting, he crushes a soda can, veins popping on his forehead as he internally scoffs at her logic. Balance his ass. His frustration boils over in a desolate, rocky landscape. Crouching over the dissolving remains of a monster, he screams her name into the empty expanse. He vents his anger by stomping another slime into oblivion. Once the rage subsides, he stands panting, a wave of exhaustion and confusion washing over him. He doesn't even know what he's doing anymore, muttering that nothing good ever seems to happen. As the defeated creature dissolves with an unusual hiss, something catches his eye. He turns abruptly, his expression shifting to one of startled curiosity. Before him, a dark, multifaceted stone materializes from the dissipating monster, hovering in midair and emitting a soft glow. The mysterious object falls to the stone floor with a clatter. This strange event occurred on the 18th consecutive day that he had spent hunting metal slimes. After a long and arduous effort, Yuma Mitaka bursts into his room, a triumphant shout echoing his success. He slumps into his chair, catching his breath, clutching the prize he had finally obtained. He opens his hands to reveal a small, dark, faceted stone. It was a magic gem, the culmination of half a year's work. His mind immediately fills with joyous possibilities. With a potential value of $1 million, he wonders what he should buy, his first thought being to get some fancy pet food from Amazon. But as he examines the object more closely, a sliver of doubt creeps in. He questions if it's truly a gem, having imagined it would be more sparkly. He wonders if polishing it might change its appearance. Uncertain, he turns to his phone for answers. The stone looks more like a piece of iron than a gem, prompting him to type a specific query into the search bar. Drop iron not gem. The search results load, and the top entry is a dungeoning full strategy guide. An article dated February 15th catches his eye. Black Dungeon and Magic Oregon. He begins to read the article, which explains that unlike the White Dungeon, that produces magic gems with healing powers, the investigation and exploration of the Black Dungeon has not advanced very far. The text continues, revealing a crucial detail. The items dropped by monsters in the Black Dungeon are not magic gems at all, but a metallic ore known as Magic Oregon. While there is data suggesting it boosts physical abilities, the effect is so subtle that it's practically imperceptible. As he reads the final lines, his face drains of color. The article concludes that the effort required to gather the ore doesn't justify the results, with many saying it's faster to just work out. Therefore, the trade price of magic ore is extremely low. The truth hits him with crushing force. Utterly defeated, he collapses face first onto his bed. After a moment stewing in his despair, he rolls over and reaches for a drawer in his desk, pulling it open. He lay collapsed on his bed, the weight of his failure pressing down on him. All that struggle, all that pocket money spent had amounted to nothing. His mind drifted back to a conversation with Keed 5 months ago, right after summer break. He glanced at a calendar marking February 2nd. In just 2 more months, spring would arrive, and he would be in year 12. He knew life wasn't so easy as to hand out dream chances. He had wasted so many months, and now he had to seriously consider his future. The thought of Awasama, Luie, surfaced. She had already chosen her path and was working hard toward it. He shook his head, flustered, telling himself that Luie had nothing to do with his own situation. He resolved to simply go at his own pace and do his best from this point forward. As the sun rose over the city, Mamazu began to bark. Yuma decided then and there to put the entire magic or incident behind it. The dog's barking persisted, sharp and insistent. A dazed Yuma asked Mamazu what was wrong, telling him there was no need to bark anymore. He let out a huge yawn, remembering that he had filled up the hole the day before. Following Mamazu's lead, he found himself standing before the large, circular patch of earth in his yard. The hole was back. He peered over the edge, his eyes widening in disbelief. A small, gelatinous slime sat at the bottom. The realization struck him. Even if he filled the hole, it simply reset the next day, and the slime returned. Exhausted and annoyed, he pleaded with Mamazu to stop barking at the creature. It was just a slime, offering no profit and representing nothing but a tedious chore. Later, as rain began to fall, he sat on the couch, holding a shivering Mamazu. He pulled the small dog close and decided it was time to go inside. He sits dejectedly outside, lamenting his fate next to the worthless slime, when his mother slides the door open. She demands to know what he's doing, scolding him for bothering the neighbors with his commotion. Her words push him over the edge, and he lets out a wail of pure frustration, crying out for it all to stop. Later, in the quiet of his room, he regrets not reporting the hole sooner, but the thought of being scolded again is too much. He glares at the small, dark ore in his hand, blaming it for his misery and wishing it were a valuable magic gem. Staring at the stone, a new idea begins to form. If it's not meant for selling, perhaps he should try using it himself. His research leads him to an online guide presented by Awasama Luie. She explains the process. One must first disinfect the item, then swallow it. The body will then break it down, allowing the user to access magic. The guide continues with a crucial warning. The stones contain mana, and it is essential to check one's own mana index before consumption. A person cannot absorb a stone if their own mana level does not exceed the stone's index. He reads on, learning that mana is a type of electromagnetic wave that increases by defeating monsters, and that a special device can measure a person's mana index. Having killed his fill of metal slimes, he reasons that his own index should be quite high. Wondering if he can buy a meter like any other appliance, he soon acquires one. The device, shaped like a hairdryer, is a second-hand model he bought for $100. The price was a hit to his wallet, but he considers the cheap find a victory. Eagerly, he points the meter at the magic or from the rare metal slime, ready for it to reveal its power. He clicks it on. The device hums for a moment before falling completely silent. Confused, he tries again, but there's only silence. The quiet failure in his room stands in stark contrast to the bustling electronics store where his brief hope was purchased. He returns to the shop, frustrated, declaring that the mana index meter he just bought must be broken. The clerk apologizes and takes the device for inspection. After 5 minutes, the clerk returns with a verdict. There is no malfunction. To prove his point, the clerk presents 3 genuine magic gems for a demonstration. A green flash peridot with a mana index of 3, a pale yellow citron with an index of 2, and a blue sky aquamarine with an index of 1. The device registers their power accurately, confirming it works perfectly. The clerk then turns to Yuma, holding the meter, and asks what kind of object he was trying to measure. Yuma looks away, hesitating to answer. He stammers that he measured a magic ore. The clerk seems to understand immediately, explaining that magic ores generally have a low mana index. He then reveals a critical piece of information. If the index is too low, the meter won't show a reading at all. Yuma is stunned. He considers this, wondering if that's also why his own mana index registered as 0. He had tried to measure himself, but the result was the same. He counters this thought aloud, telling the clerk that he has killed more than 100 monsters, even a somewhat strong slime. The clerk listens patiently before gently correcting him, stating that there seems to be a misunderstanding. The clerk's explanation shatters Yuma's understanding of his progress. He clarifies that humans can only absorb a tiny fraction of the mana from the monsters they kill. For instance, defeating a monster with a mana index of 100 would only increase a person's index by 1. Therefore, it's quite common for someone's mana index not to increase at all, no matter how many weak slimes they defeat. As the weight of this revelation sinks in, the distant, mocking calls of birds echo in the sky. The sound seems to mock him. Now outside at a park, he grips the chains of a swing set, gritting his teeth. His $100 wasted. He wonders who the real fool is. His frustration gives way to dejection as he sits on the swing. He can't just give up, not after killing so many monsters. But he faces a grim possibility. If he swallows the magic or without checking it, he might just excrete a useless 2-centimeter iron lung. He sat on a swing, frustrated, about to crumple a flyer he'd found. He considered it just another piece of trash to be thrown away. But as he read the words, his expression shifted dramatically. The flyer advertised free and accurate mana index readings at a place called the Blue Dungeon. A spark of hope ignited within him. This was it. He stood before the impressive Sashikagane station, the location mentioned on the flyer. Wasting no time, he approached the front desk and purchased a student ticket to the first floor. His destination was clear: the mana measuring room of the SDI Musashi Kagane branch. Inside, he waited anxiously, his heart thumping in his chest. He reassured himself that this professional facility would provide a proper reading, validating all his efforts. His gaze fixed on the precise mana index meter, and he swallowed nervously as his turn approached. Moments later, he held the printout of his test results. All his confidence, built upon a half-year of grinding against metal slimes, evaporated as he stared at the page. Every single metric read 0. The staff member confirmed the devastating news. His mana index was 0. The man explained that the device was incredibly precise, capable of measuring down to 0.01 units, leaving no room for error. The finality of the statement left him speechless. He turned and walked away, a heavy sense of defeat weighing him down. As he left, the two staff members discussed his case. One remarked on the recent influx of amateurs who mistakenly believe killing low-level monsters will raise their mana. He knowingly stated that no matter how many slimes one kills in the blue dungeon, it's a futile effort, but chose not to crush their hopes by telling them directly. Suddenly, the clattering of a machine interrupted their conversation. The printer continued its mechanical racket, spewing out a continuous sheet of paper. The paper cascaded onto the floor, forming a growing pile. The two staff members stared in disbelief, the man stammering in confusion as he questioned what was happening. He and his colleagues could only watch in disbelief as the chaos unfolded. The mana index meter, a machine worth millions, was now spewing an endless stream of blank paper, littering the floor. One staff member wondered aloud if it was broken, an unprecedented event. Another shouted in frustration at the machine's failure, while a third simply stated the obvious. It was spitting out nothing but blank sheets. Meanwhile, far from the facility and oblivious to the pandemonium he caused, Yuma Mitaka stared at the long printout in his hand. A quiet sob escaped him as he scanned the results again. No matter how many times he looked, it was just a line of zeros. The reality of it was crushing. This whole endeavor sucked. Yuma Mitaka stares at his assessment results, a string of zeros mocking his efforts. He sighs, the brief hope he held now completely extinguished. It was, he thinks, a short-lived dream. He crumples slightly, realizing that half a year's worth of effort has all gone down the drain. It feels utterly pointless. Despite his disappointment, he finds himself standing before a set of doors labeled Blue Dungeon. He remembers his original goal was to have his mana index measured, something he'd forgotten in his recent focus. He concludes this must be the place. Looking up, he sees a vast, domed glass ceiling glittering above. Since he's already gone to the trouble of coming all this way, he figures he might as well take a look around. His casual curiosity is met by the voice of a staff member addressing a crowd. She directs everyone to the entrance of the Blue Dungeon, cautioning them to be well prepared. Yuma initially scoffs, wondering if it's really such a big deal, just a larger version of the hole in his garden. But as he gets a proper look, his condescension vanishes, replaced by pure astonishment. Before him lies an enormous, gaping chasm plunging into darkness, its edges secured by a perimeter railing. The sheer scale of the dungeon entrance is staggering. He walks slowly along the railing, peering into the abyss, his previous nonchalance completely gone. He can't help but wonder aloud if dungeons truly get this enormous. As he stands there, the same staff member approaches him from behind, asking if it's his first time. Startled, he turns and confirms that it is. She then requests to see his entry pass. He nervously obliges. After checking it, she reassures him, noting that he's only headed for the first floor and will be just fine, as there's no danger there. Her reassurance is followed by a cheerful, almost offhand question. Did he happen to bring a weapon to fight monsters? The query catches him completely off guard, and he can only stare back, repeating the word weapon in confusion. He admits he doesn't have a weapon, recalling that he saw a stall selling stun guns and batons near where he bought his mana measuring device. The guide listens intently, understanding his situation. In response, she gestures toward a weapon rental outlet, inviting him to pick any item he likes for monster slaying. She reassures him that it's fine, asking only that he return it when he's finished. As he hesitantly agrees, another staff member instructs him to write down his name, address, and phone number. Having made his choice, he stands inside the dungeon's entrance, holding a simple hammer. He reflects that it feels like the right weapon for him, likely because he's grown accustomed to using one. He begins his descent down a seemingly endless series of metal staircases carved into the dungeon's rock face. The sheer length of the descent makes him wish for an elevator. After the long walk, he finally arrives at a set of automatic doors set into a stone wall, marked by a sign, Floor 1. The doors slide open, and the view beyond stops him in his tracks. His eyes widen, a look of pure awe on his face as he takes in the incredible sight. He stands amidst the colossal ruins of an ancient city, contained within a massive, open-top cavern. Broken pillars and crumbling walls stretch towards a distant, star-filled sky. Looking up, he marvels at the fact that light still filters down into this deep place, though he acknowledges it's far from brightly lit. His gaze sweeps across the ruins as a realization begins to dawn on him about the source of the ambient light. He looks down from his vantage point and understands. The area is bustling with numerous other people, exploring the ruins as if it were a popular tourist spot. He observes the bustling crowd, realizing that everyone else has come in groups to hunt for monsters. A sense of isolation washes over him as he wonders if he's the only one alone. With so many people scouring the area, he questions if there are even any monsters left to fight. As his gaze sweeps across the stone floor, it lands on a small, gelatinous creature hopping slowly towards him. He crouches down, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. It's just an ordinary slime, seemingly harmless. Raising his rented hammer, he notes how incredibly slow the creature is. It's a stark contrast to the slime in his garden, which jumps all over the place. He prepares to strike. With a swift, decisive motion, he brings the hammer down, splattering the slime across the stone tiles. The ease of the kill is startling. He wonders if all slimes are this weak, remembering that the one in his garden is 100 times stronger. A wave of dejection hits him as he recalls the diagnosis. His mana index is 0. Defeating common slimes won't increase it, making his past 6 months of suffering feel utterly pointless. He inspects the spot where the slime was. As he expected, it left behind no magic gems. He continues his hunt, finding and killing 6 more slimes. The result is the same each time, not a single drop. He sighs, feeling the entire endeavor is pointless. Just then, a nearby cry of excitement cuts through his gloom. A young woman celebrates loudly, having just found a blue magic gem. Her companion congratulates her, identifying the find as a blue sky aquamarine. They estimate it's about 0.2 carats and could sell for around 2,000 yen. She beamed, explaining to her companion that she wasn't trying to become a professional, but simply wanted to use magic for her own enjoyment. Her friend pointed out that magic can only be used inside a dungeon, a fact she cheerfully confirmed. Her simple, joyful reasoning struck Yuma with the force of a physical blow. He stood frozen, wondering if his own thinking was on the same level as an elementary schooler's as he watched the pair walk away toward the dungeon entrance. He glanced down at his own status report, a grim confirmation of his reality. All zeros. No matter how many slimes he defeated, it seemed he would never be able to use magic. Elsewhere, at the imposing headquarters of the International Dungeon Research Organization, or IDR, a different kind of problem was unfolding. Inside, a gloved hand passed a data slate to Clark Griffin, instructing him to give it to Ethan. Clark accepted, though he questioned if he was truly the right person to deliver it. A senior researcher apologized to Clark for his assistant, Ethan Noble, admitting he didn't particularly like the man. He described Ethan as an odd and rude individual who judges things solely on whether or not he finds them interesting. He continued, however, that Ethan was an outstanding scholar who was the first to discover mana, and that his expertise was essential. He instructed Clark to review the data himself before passing it along. Upon viewing the contents of the slate, Clark's professional demeanor shattered. He immediately brought the alarming data to Ethan and the senior researcher, confirming its authenticity. There was no mistaking it. He voiced his concern, asking if this data meant trouble for the near future. Ethan explained that this was precisely why monsters had begun appearing outside of dungeons, because there had been no mana above ground before. The senior researcher grimly concluded that mana was leaking out, and a chart confirmed their worst fears. The amount was steadily increasing. The implication was terrifying and clear. If the mana continued to leak like this, it was only a matter of time until monsters started appearing on the surface. Inside the IDR offices, Clark Griffin's voice was tight with anxiety as he clutched a report. He demanded to know how his colleague could remain so carefree, but Ethan Noble calmly stated that he saw no need to panic for the time being. He explained that the increase in mana density was still negligible. While monsters would indeed begin to appear on the surface, they would only be weak, low-leveled creatures. Therefore, he concluded there was no immediate danger. His colleague conceded the point, admitting Ethan was right. Ethan then advised him that losing his cool would only narrow his thinking. He suggested that while there was no problem for now, they should use the time to calmly devise appropriate countermeasures. He then directed Clark's attention to page 8 of the report, noting that something even more important was written there. Clark, trusting his senior's judgment, expressed his curiosity. The document confirmed that mana density in the upper levels of dungeons was rising slowly. Clark quickly deduced that this meant monsters from the deeper levels would eventually start ascending. Ethan, however, saw this as further proof that there was no need to worry. Surprised by his own shift in mood, Clark found he had managed to calm down. His composure regained, Clark asked about the other problems Ethan had mentioned, the ones that took precedence over the monster threat. Ethan leaned forward, a knowing smile on his face. The true consequence of mana overflowing from the dungeons, he revealed, was that it would soon be possible to use magic outside of them. Meanwhile, under a starry night sky, Yuma Mitaka sat at his desk, a low, determined hum filling the quiet of his room. He stared down at a small, dark crystal resting on the wood grain. His fingers hovered over it as a single question echoed in his mind. What to do now? His thoughts drifted back over the long summer. Day in and day out. Without fail, he had hunted the metal slime. It had taken 181 grueling days to finally get his hands on this single magic ore drop. He gazes at the magic ore, his insatiable curiosity taking over. Even if it is only a garbage tier magical effect, a garbage price, and he lacks the mana to use even that, he still wants to try it as a celebration for finally obtaining one. His excitement gives way to caution as he researches the ore on his phone. He learns that some ores have absolutely zero magic, and his own mana measuring device registered 0 as well. While the blue dungeon's more sensitive equipment detected a trace amount, he realizes the core problem. If there's even a little bit of mana, he can't use it. The quickest way to find out is to simply try it, but the thought of ingesting something unusable and having it pass through him makes him uneasy. His research leads him to a peculiar but relevant detail. The typical size of human waste is 3 to 4 centimeters. This strange piece of information sends his mind racing, moving from frantic calculation to puzzled contemplation, before finally settling on a conclusion. The conclusion brings a wave of determined relief. He realizes that since the ore is only 2 centimeters, even if it passes through him, it should be manageable. With his decision made, he moves to the kitchen and grabs a bottle of tea from the refrigerator. He then pauses, wondering if he should disinfect the ore before consuming. Stealing his resolve, he holds the small, dark ore between his fingers and prepares to swallow it, murmuring, "Here goes nothing." Without further hesitation, he tosses the ore into his mouth. He quickly swallows it down with a gulp of tea. A moment passes. He feels nothing. Confused, he wonders if there was any effect at all. Just as he dismisses the attempt, a violent surge of power erupts from within his stomach. He gasps, clutching his midsection as an unknown energy bursts forth. He felt the violent reaction subside, replaced by a delayed warmth spreading from his stomach. He wondered if he had successfully absorbed the ore, recalling that magic ore was meant to enhance physical abilities. His mind raced with the possibility of gaining some incredible new power. Eager to test this theory, he rushed outside, throwing a series of powerful punches and kicks into the air, shouting with effort. But after the flurry of motion, he came to a halt with a placid smile. He concluded that nothing had changed. It then occurred to him that magic could only be used inside dungeons anyway, so he resolved to simply be content with having ingested the ore for now. His quiet moment was shattered by a sudden, aggressive barking. He turned, startled, to see Mamizu in a state of agitation. He tried to soothe the dog, asking what was wrong and explaining that he was just seeing if anything had changed. As he spoke, he realized this was unusual. Mamizu only barked so intensely when the slime monster appeared or when he was hungry. The dog's strange behavior prompted him to look down at himself, a flicker of concern in his eyes. A faint, hexagonal pattern began to materialize on his cheek. He then raised his hands, staring in shock. They were no longer human, but had transformed into dark, chitinous claws. A single, disbelieving sound escaped him. As Mamizu barks incessantly, Yuma Mitaka bursts into his room, his footsteps heavy on the floor. From the other room, his mother calls out, asking what he's up to. Yuma's mind races, consumed by a single, frantic question. Just what happened to him? He rushes to a mirror, his eyes wide with shock as he confronts his own reflection. The face staring back at him has a distinct, unnatural sheen. A horrifying realization dawns on him. He's turned into metal. He touches his metallic cheek, wondering if this is the power of the magic, or his arm has become pitch black and sharp, and a quick check confirms his leg has transformed as well. This discovery shatters his understanding of the world. He had always believed magic was only usable within dungeons. He questions what kind of magic gem could possibly do this. The implications of his new state crash down on him. He clutches his head, his metallic fingers digging into his hair as a single, terrifying thought takes hold. Can he even go back to normal? His panic intensifies, his eyes swirling with dread. The thought of being stuck in this terrible form for the rest of his life is unbearable. He desperately pleads with his own body to turn back, to reverse the change. The desperate plea echoes in his mind, a silent, internal scream. Turn me back, but his body does not respond. He collapses to the floor, defeated. It won't go back. He's screwed. He remains on the floor, tears of frustration welling in his eyes. He doesn't know what to do. He curses the metal slime, blaming the creature for his current, monstrous state. His gaze then falls upon his transformed hand, noting its uncanny resemblance to the metal slime. As this thought crosses his mind, his eyes drift to a hammer resting on his desk, and an idea begins to form. He tests his new metallic body, striking his arm with a hammer. A sharp thing echoes, but he feels no pain, realizing he's as hard as the metal slime. This discovery leads him to grab a can of cooling spray. He directs the freezing blast at his arm and immediately recoils, crying out as a sharp, cold sensation proves to be a new vulnerability. The intense cold makes him realize something crucial. It seems his new form shares the same weaknesses as the slime, a vulnerability to both cold and fire. To his immense relief, after about 5 minutes, the metallic sheen fades and his body returns to normal. He leaps into the air, overjoyed that the transformation wasn't permanent. Looking back on the strange event, he admits to himself that while it was surprising, it was also a little funny. A flicker of concern crosses his mind as he gazes at the city lights, wondering if that was a one-time occurrence and if he'll ever be able to do it again. The next day, he decides to test his theory. Standing in his room, he concentrates, repeating the words "get hard." To his delight, his body transforms once more, the metallic sheen returning. He's done it again. He reflects on his past assessment, which stated he had a mana index of 0. Despite that, an ability has clearly awakened within him. He concludes that this must be the power of the dungeon magic where he found. Just as it did the day before, the transformation automatically wears off after 5 minutes, returning him to his normal state. He now has confirmation of the ability's duration. He immediately tries to transform again, straining with effort, but nothing happens. The realization dawns on him. This power must have a limit. He can likely only use it once a day. With this new understanding, his mind races with possibilities. He imagines himself in the lower levels of a dungeon, his hardened fists easily pummeling a massive tentacled beast. He smirks, thinking that this ability could make him a huge help. His thoughts then drift to the financial rewards. He pictures himself as the successful streamer he saw, presenting a magic gem worth 3 million yen. The idea of becoming like him is tempting, though he laughs it off, claiming he isn't all that interested in such a path. His brief fantasy of wealth, however, was quickly shattered by the reality of the world he was watching on his phone. A popular streamer was explaining the nature of monsters found in the dungeon depths, noting that physical attacks have almost no effect at that level. These creatures, he explained, possess sturdy bodies capable of withstanding even gunshots and shelling. The streamer continued, listing a menagerie of powerful beasts: fire-breathing dragons, strange wind-blowing birds, demons clad in lightning, and spirits that control the cold. He emphasized that because these monsters can manipulate magic themselves, only magic is truly effective against them, making it a priceless asset. His conclusion, displayed on the screen, was stark. The only thing able to oppose such creatures is magic, and magic alone. This information struck a chord with Yuma. He could only attack physically, and his metal form was weak against both cold and fire, the very elements wielded by the monsters just described. The realization left him feeling utterly useless, a quiet sigh escaping his lips as he gazed out over the city. And thus, he remained unable to think of any practical way to use his unique ability. This feeling of inadequacy was familiar. He often worried about his future, but in the end, he would just laze around, envying the rich and famous without ever doing anything to change his own circumstances. With no clear path forward, he had decided to attend a bottom-tier university with low entry requirements. His motivation was so depleted that even the simple task of defeating a slime had felt like a bother. This had become his morning routine: a walk with his dog, Mamizu, followed by the perfunctory dispatch of a slime with a hammer. He continued this cycle day after day, spending his time simply lazing around. He walks with a weary sigh, reflecting on how more than a year has passed since the day he first discovered the metal slime. Yet his life remains stagnant. Far from his quiet routine, deep within the red dungeon of Ibaraki Prefecture, a perilous situation is unfolding in the cavernous darkness. A group of adventurers is in serious trouble. One of them, a young woman, has fallen to her knees, pleading for help as her companions shout in panic. The source of their terror reveals itself: a colossal, heavily armored dragon-like beast that looms over them, breathing a jet of fire. The monster's jaws snap forward, its eyes glowing with predatory light as it presses its fiery assault. Suddenly, the young woman springs into action, leaping onto the creature's back and deflecting a strike with her weapon. Her expression now one of fierce resolve. She drives her blade down with immense force, striking the monster's thick, dark scales. The beast recoils, roaring in pain from the powerful blow. With a final decisive motion, she brings her weapon down again in a devastating overhead strike. In the aftermath, a staff member asks if she is all right. She confirms she is fine, explaining that the fireproof coat she borrowed for the trial session saved her. When asked for her name for a health check, she presents her ID and introduces herself as Awasama Luie, a third-year high school student. She sits patiently in a modern, sunlit office overlooking the city. A voice from off-panel apologizes for having kept her waiting. A large man in a dark suit enters, introducing himself as Ishikawa of the Else Corporation, the supervisor from the recent dungeon trial session. He extends a hand, expressing his deep gratitude for saving his employees. She accepts the handshake, replying humbly that it was nothing and she's just glad they are safe. Now seated across the table from her, he brings up the salamander she defeated, gesturing towards a report with a photograph of the creature. Ishikawa notes that its vital points at the neck and side were pierced with precision. He then asks if she had planned to strike those specific weak spots. She confirms that she did. She explains that she has diligently studied the monsters found in dungeons, which allows her to recall their weaknesses during an encounter. Impressed, Ishikawa remarks on how outstanding her abilities are. He then asks Amasawa to hold out her hand, to which she complies with a questioning look. In her palm, he places a small box containing a glittering, dark gemstone. He identifies it as the vermilion silver ruby, the magic gem that dropped from the salamander. She immediately protests, stating she can't accept something so valuable. Ishikawa insists, explaining that the rules of the trial session clearly state the Slayer gets to keep any drops. He specifies that this particular gem is a rare beauty with a mana index of 700, fetching a market price of 14 million yen. He urges her to take it, adding that he has a gut feeling it will prove useful to her in the future. She gazes down at the gem, contemplating his words. Meanwhile, on the morning of December 12th, Yuma Mitaka lets out a massive yawn. He complains about being sleepy and how school is a pain while drinking from a milk carton. In the background, a television is on, and he dismisses the current program, wondering who even wants to listen to news about celebrities. His attention is then captured by the screen as the news switches to a dungeon-related story. The report details a recent trial event held by the Else Corporation where aspiring seekers ran into trouble. A salamander, a monster that normally inhabits the 10th floor or lower, had unexpectedly appeared on the upper floors. His heart pounded as he watched the news report. He mused that the monsters on the 10th floor and below must be incredibly strong, making it all the more surprising that a high school student had been the one to rescue a woman under attack. The television screen then filled with an image of the student, her expression fierce as she held a blade. The news ticker identified her, Amasawa Luie, age 17. Yuma stared, his eyes wide with disbelief as his heart continued to race. He uttered her name, a question hanging in the air of his quiet living room. The scene shifted to the aftermath of the incident. Outside the dungeon facility, cameras clicked and flashed as reporters swarmed Awasama Ruie. She stood composed, the center of a media frenzy, with Yuma and Keed among the onlookers in the crowd. A reporter pushed a microphone forward, asking if she had been afraid of the monster. Ruie considered the question, then explained that in the heat of the moment, she was so absorbed in the fight that fear didn't register. She continued with a modest smile, attributing her success to the quality of the rental weapons. She added that even the staff at the Else Company were surprised that a high school student could defeat such a powerful creature. The reporter then brought up the magic gem dropped by the monster, mentioning its value of over 14 million yen and asking about her plans for it. The figure stunned Yuma, who overheard from the crowd. His shock deepened when Ruie calmly replied that no, she was thinking of using it for herself. She looked directly at the press with unwavering resolve, declaring her intention to become a seeker in the future. The word echoed in Yuma's mind as he watched her. He turned to Keed, completely lost, and asked what else it was. She explained that it was the largest dungeoneering corporation in Japan and that joining it was Rue's ultimate goal. As they spoke, a group of adults could be heard praising Rue's excellent grades, her strong desire to contribute to society, and her recognized talent. He looked at him, exasperated by his ignorance. She clarified that in order to join Elst, Ruie planned to attend the National Training Institution upon graduation. When Yuma asked what that was, Keed explained it's an institution for nurturing seekers. She then chided him, reminding him that they never brought it up because he had always claimed to have no interest in such matters. He is taken aback as Key Chinos reveals she has something important to tell him. She announces her plan to join the National Training Institution with Ruie upon graduation. With a determined expression, she specifies her ambition is not just to be a seeker, but to become a messiah, a rare role exclusive to those who can wield healing magic through a white magic gem. Her declaration prompts him to question if her chosen path is even more difficult than becoming a standard seeker. She affirms that it is. She elaborates, explaining that now that she has a dream for her future, she is determined to pursue it with all her might. She recounts how she spoke to Ruie, who helped her get an aptitude test from someone at the Else Corporation. The test confirmed her potential, though it came with a caveat. As the crowd of students moves on, leaving him behind, two words linger in his thoughts: dream, future. He reflects on his relationships. Ruie, the childhood friend he viewed as a rival, and Keed, whom he'd always imagined would be by his side. It dawns on him that while they were pursuing their ambitions, running towards their goals, he has been standing still. The realization culminates in a single, stark question to himself. Just what am I doing? The question spirals into a desperate internal cry. He feels an urgent need to act, but is paralyzed by a void of ambition. He has no desires, no passions, no interests to pursue. Staring at his textbooks, Yuma Mitaka realizes the biggest difference between himself, Keed, and Luie is their academic ability. He resolves to start studying immediately to catch up. Moments later, defeated, he stands in his doorway and asks his dog, Mamazu, if he thinks it's possible. He quickly concludes that it's hopeless. Feeling lost, he sits outside with Mamazu, admitting he can't find any dreams to pursue or goals to aim for, leaving him without motivation. His thoughts drift to his childhood friend, Amasawa Luie, an attractive and talented young man who excels at sports and is liked by everyone. Luie's recent victory over a salamander even made the news, solidifying his future dream of becoming a seeker. He then thinks of his other childhood friend, Ichino's Keed. He recalls that while she used to be nosy and poke fun at him, she was always a good person. Raised in a single-mother household, her dream had been to enroll in nursing school to help people, but now she has set her sights on becoming a messiah. He stands alone as he pictures Luie and Keed running ahead, confident that they will achieve their respective goals of becoming a seeker and a messiah. An unknown observer notes that because the two were specially chosen for their talents, they will inevitably draw the envy of others, an envy that will only grow with their status. Watching them walk away together in his mind, Yuma realizes that seeing them head towards their dreams reveals something enviable and radiant that he feels he is unable to see for himself. He sits with Mamazu, petting the dog's head, and wishes aloud that he had something he could wholeheartedly aim for. Since that moment of introspection, he has managed to acquire 2 more magic ores. As Mamazu barks encouragingly, Yuma agrees that he just needs to stick to his daily routine. After consuming the ores, he flexes his arm. The duration of his metallization skill has been extended by 15 minutes, an upgrade he immediately dismisses as useless. He decides to set aside the extended duration and focus on defeating the slime as usual. As he approaches the cave entrance, however, a strange, sparkling light from within catches his eye, causing him to pause in confusion. He steps into the cave, his eyes widening in shock at the source of the light, a shimmering, golden slime. The creature immediately zips past him. He realizes with a start that it's incredibly fast and calls out for it to hold on. In response, he pulls out a can of cooling spray, recognizing that this new slime is different from any he's faced before. To his frustration, the spray seems to have no effect. His expression hardens with determination. Gripping his spray cans tightly, he vows that he will definitely defeat it. After a difficult fight, he emerges victorious, throwing his arms up in a triumphant pose. He pants, realizing he used far too much of his spray and burner to take down the single creature. As the slime's remains dissipate, a small, solid object clatters onto the stone floor near his feet. He kneels and picks it up, identifying the sparkling, faceted gem. It's another magic ore, but this one is a brilliant gold. Later, back at home, he searches online for terms like black dungeon, golden, and magic ore, but his search yields no results. He then tests the ore with his mana index meter. The device pings, displaying a reading of 2,000, confirming his suspicion that it likely has no value as a magic gem, even if he can use it himself. A new idea occurs to him. Since it looks like gold, maybe he can sell it. He calls a precious metals exchange, but his hopes are quickly dashed. They require a purchase history or a certificate of purity, which he lacks. When he asks if a miner can come alone, he's told it's not allowed, leaving him frustrated and at a dead end. Frustrated by his inability to sell the ore, he came to a new resolution with a confident smirk. He would simply use it for himself. His resolve was immediately followed by a wave of comical anxiety. He pictured his body turning golden and shiny, wondering in a panic what he would possibly do if that happened. He examined the ore outside his home, noting that it was still the same metallic color as usual and questioning if there had been any change at all. With a surge of hope, he held it aloft and willed it to activate, shouting for it to get hard. But nothing happened. The ore lay inert on the ground the next day, and the day after that. Even after several days passed, it remained completely unchanged. Then, during his dungeon explorations, he began to notice a pattern. A strange development was occurring, one he found quite odd. Crouching at the mouth of a cave, he reflected on his recent hunts. He had been killing metallic slimes every day for over a year, yet in all that time, he had only acquired 3 magic ores. Now, suddenly, they had been dropping consistently for 5 days straight, making him question if this sudden luck was real. His thoughts immediately turned to the one new variable. There could be only one cause, the golden magic ore. He theorized that it must be increasing his luck, raising the item drop rate to a guaranteed 100%. A thrilling possibility then struck him. If it worked on magic ores, could it also affect the drop rate of magic gems? He grew ecstatic at the thought that his struggle for over a year might finally be rewarded. Filled with purpose, he returned home before setting out again on his bicycle, Mamizu running alongside. He declared his intention to test this theory on the normal slimes at the Blue Dungeon. The experiment ended in failure. He lay sprawled on his bed, utterly dejected. No magic gems had dropped. He concluded with disappointment that the golden ores effect must only apply to magic ores. He continued to gather magic ores, amassing 14 of them, which allowed him to extend his metallization skills duration to a maximum of 70 minutes. Still, he wondered if there was any other use for them. Just as he was beginning to feel disheartened by the limited application, his attention was drawn to the large, dark slime before him. But then, a new creature emerged from the darkness, a red slime. He stared in amazement, having never imagined such a color variation could exist among these monsters. The creature lunged forward suddenly, causing him to stumble back with a cry of alarm. He watched, unnerved, as the red slime coiled and tensed, clearly eager for confrontation. In response to the challenge, his arms hardened into metal. He addressed the creature directly, explaining that consuming magic ores made him incredibly tough. Although he disliked using this form because it often ripped his clothes, he declared that if it was a fight the slime wanted, it would get one. He braced for impact, confidently roaring that any physical attacks would be useless against his hardened body. Deciding to end the fight quickly, he produced a burner, intending to deliver a fiery, killing blow. The jet of flame washed over the creature, but to no effect. He watched in disbelief, quickly realizing the red slime was completely immune to heat. Stumped, he pulled out his phone to search for a way to weaken metal. An article suggested applying a specific cleaning agent to spread rust on the surface, causing it to deteriorate. A new plan began to form in his mind. His preparations were methodical. First, he would need to move Mamizu to a safe location. Then, he would equip himself with a protective mask and rubber gloves before acquiring a bucket and a necessary acidic cleaning agent. He put his plan into action. After pouring the cleaning agent into a bucket, he rolled the slime inside until it was immobilized, then let it freeze. Once the creature was fully coated in rust, he subjected it to a cycle of cooling and heating. The strategy was a resounding success, and he raised a fist in triumph. His victory was short-lived. The very next day, he was shocked to find another color variant, a purplish-blue slime. This one, he quickly realized, was immune to the cold, making it much harder to stop. He had come prepared for a fight, having already moved Mamizu to safety and readied kerosene and a lighter, but this new immunity presented an unexpected complication. Despite the new challenge, his preparations proved sufficient. By simply burning the entire hole, he once again emerged victorious, flashing a cheerful peace sign. The pattern continued. The following day, a golden slime appeared. He noted that his heating and cooling method worked just fine, making the fight almost anticlimactically normal. It seemed he could now expect a new variant each day. These repeated victories yielded a new kind of reward, a collection of brightly colored, multifaceted magic ores. Back at his desk, he examined his haul. He now possessed 4 more of these unique ores, all acquired from the colored slimes that appeared day after day. He couldn't help but wonder about the meaning behind this sudden phenomenon. He considered the possibilities. Recalling that the golden magic ore had raised the drop rate to 100%, he theorized these new colored ores might have a similar, powerful effect. Since they were still magic ores that couldn't be sold, he decided the only way to find out was to consume them. With his decision made, he prepared to observe any changes, starting with his metallization skill. Lifting his shirt, he reasoned he should remove his clothes to avoid tearing them. He tensed his body, but the initial effort seemed to drain him completely, leaving him momentarily exhausted. Gathering his strength, he tried again, flexing his muscles with a determined shout. A strange, unsettling sound of creaking and cracking filled the air. His eyes shot open in surprise as he felt a bizarre transformation begin, a dark substance forming and shattering across his skin. The transformation completed, leaving him staring at his reflection in utter shock. His body was no longer entirely human. Jagged horns sprouted from his head, his ears were pointed and dark, armor plates now covered his torso and arms. He looked at his changed form, his mind reeling as he demanded to know what in the world had grown out of him. He internally panics, realizing that consuming the colored magic ores is what caused this frightening transformation. This is completely different from before, and he tells himself it's not the time to get flustered. He stares at his hands and body, now covered in sharp, bony protrusions, his expression a mask of shock. He quickly tries to calm himself, reasoning that he'll return to normal once the metallization wears off. There's no need to panic. His thoughts then shift to a more practical matter. He almost forgot to check the effects of the magic ores and decides to look them up online. He pulls out his phone, and the screen displays information on various dungeons. Blue dungeons generate gems for water magic, red for fire magic, and white for healing magic. The information continues. Black dungeons produce gems that strengthen the user's body. Green dungeons enable wind magic, and yellow dungeons grant lightning magic. He considers this new information, theorizing that the magic ores must share the same attributes as the gems from their corresponding dungeons. However, he notes that it doesn't feel like he can actually use magic. Spotting a can of coolant and a gas torch, he wonders how to begin testing his hypothesis. Putting his theory to the test, he concentrates and conjures a small, steady flame in the palm of his hand. He exposes the flame first to the freezing coolant and then to the intense heat of the torch, exclaiming in surprise that it feels neither hot nor cold. The results lead him to a clear conclusion. The red ore grants fire resistance. Following this logic, blue must provide cold resistance, yellow lightning resistance, and green wind resistance. The only remaining problem is figuring out how to test the others. He stared at his transformed hands, a sense of awe washing over him. In other words, he had just obtained resistance to all 4 types of attack magic: fire, water, lightning, and wind. The power was, he realized, pretty amazing. This incredible power, however, felt disconnected from his reality. He mused that it didn't matter how much his body turned to metal or how many resistances he acquired. It wouldn't be of any use in his daily life. After all, he still hadn't found any dream or goal to pursue. Moments later, the transformation subsided, and he returned to his normal self, steam rising from his body. He felt a wave of relief, noting it had only lasted about 5 minutes, and decided to get dressed. Even so, he couldn't help but feel happy that the range of things he could now do had increased. Lying in bed later, his thoughts turned to the future. He recalled the order of the ores he'd consumed: red, blue, yellow, then green. He wondered aloud if a white one would be next. The idea of having an immunity to healing magic sounded strange, though. He shrugged it off, figuring some weird slime would probably show up anyway. The next day, his casual prediction proved startlingly accurate. He stood inside a cavern, facing a creature he hadn't anticipated. Before him was a slime, but not just any slime. It was huge, stupidly huge. Of all the things he could have encountered, he thought with utter disgust, it had to be a black slime. At the International Dungeon Research Organization, the story shifts back 2 weeks to the day after Yuma defeated the golden slime. A commotion ripples through the facility. Ethan Noble observes from a balcony, noting that it's been 3 years since a unique monster was defeated. He correctly surmises that a Duke-ranked beast has fallen, the 3rd one to date, which explains the excitement among the other researchers. The source of this information is the Orpheus Stone Tablet, an artifact discovered in the White Dungeon Orpheus. This tablet displays special monsters and ranks their strength, categorizing them into 24 dukes, 12 lords, and 6 kings. Researchers refer to these creatures as unique monsters. When one is defeated, its corresponding ore on the tablet shatters, making the artifact invaluable to research organizations worldwide. As the Duke-ranked monster fell, its corresponding ore on the tablet cracks and shatters. The most interesting detail of this event is that the ore was black. This fact does not go unnoticed. Clark Griffin reports that governments around the world are confirming the kill, reasoning that it must have been a considerable clan to defeat a duke. Ethan Noble speculates that countries with large black dungeons, such as India, Russia, Australia, or Brazil, are the likely locations. He considers Japan as a possibility, but dismisses it, believing exploration there is not advanced enough. He smirks, concluding that diving deep into a black dungeon that offers no profit is simply not worth the risk. The narrative returns to the present, where Yuma Mitaka faces the enormous black slime. Recalling the researcher's sentiment, he grimaces, thinking to himself that some people are indeed quite daring. He stares at the creature, shocked by its sheer size. While a typical metal slime is only 15 centimeters, this one is a massive 75 centimeters. He feels a wave of relief, reminding himself that slimes are unable to leave their holes. His confidence wavers for a moment. He questions if he can truly defeat such a monster, but his determination quickly returns. The dream of obtaining a super rare magic, or from such a large slime, is too tempting to give up. Steeling himself, he confirms his preparations. All burners and sprays are ready, and his enhanced metallic ability is active. In his excitement, he realizes he forgot to remove his tracksuit, but decides it's too late now. With a shout, he charges forward. He leaps toward the slime, but his attack is suddenly intercepted. Black tendrils erupt from the creature, striking him and his equipment with surprising force. Thrown back, he stares in disbelief, wondering what just happened. He watched as the creature's tendril, sharpened to a razor's edge, sliced through the air directly towards him. The tendril struck him with tremendous force, yet it failed to pierce his skin. He realized with a start that the attack hadn't cut him, nor did it cause any pain. He wondered aloud if his metallic form was simply too hard, shouting at the creature to stop its frightening attacks. As if understanding his words, the slime retracted its tendril, only to manifest an array of sharp and brutal implements from its body, a saw, a spiked club, and other tools. He recoiled in shock, yelling for it to wait, protesting that its attacks were useless against him. His protests went unheeded. The slime morphed again, its entire body bristling with sharp, menacing spikes. With a sudden burst, the spikes launched from its body, tearing his clothes to ribbons. He cried out in annoyance, comparing the creature to a porcupine. Though his body was unharmed, confirming his metallic form's durability, his attire was ruined. Gritting his teeth, he resolved to continue the fight, remembering he still had his sprays and burners. The grueling battle of attrition began. 30 minutes passed, with him shouting at the slime to cease its relentless spike attacks. An hour went by, his determination unwavering as he vowed not to lose to the damnable creature. Eventually, he slumped in exhaustion, surrounded by a litter of empty spray cans. The slime remained before him, placid and undamaged. He sighed, asking the creature if it had finally had enough, muttering that the stalemate felt endless. His frustration grew. Even though the attacks didn't hurt, being hit so many times was becoming intensely annoying. With all his sprays and burners depleted, he was at a loss for what to do next. Suddenly, he remembered his hammer. It was a simple tool, but one he had used every day for over a year, a trusty part of him. A new fire lit in his eyes as he drew the nail hammer, glaring at the slime. With a roar of defiance, he vowed to break the creature. He charged, bringing the hammer down with all his might. The impact was immense, shattering the stone floor beneath him in a burst of raw power. He collapses to the ground, utterly spent from the prolonged battle. The monstrous slime has vanished, leaving behind only a single, gleaming monster core that bounces once before settling in a puddle. "I'm beat," he murmurs, his body limp with exhaustion. Back at home, his disheveled appearance earns him a sharp reprimand from his mother. She demands to know what he's been doing, accusing him of shredding his clothes while playing with Mamazu. He weakly attempts to deflect, claiming he just got a bit carried away with the dog. Later, he examines the prize from his victory. The small, dark, or from the black slime sparkles in his hand, its surface etched with a delicate pattern. Sitting at his desk, he muses that at first glance, it looks like an ordinary magic or with a floral pattern. He reasons that since he defeated such a powerful monster, his own meager mana reserves must have increased, even if just by a little. A nearby device pings, drawing his attention. He holds a mana scanner to the patterned ore, but the display remains stubbornly at 0. He sighs in frustration. If it had even a little bit of mana, he could have sold it and given up on trying to use it himself. With no other options apparent, he decides to consume this one as well. He pops the ore into his mouth and swallows. A familiar warmth spreads through his stomach, a feeling he is becoming accustomed to. But this sensation quickly escalates into a violent, searing heat. His eyes fly open in shock as his body is racked with an intense internal convulsion. He panics, a single thought racing through his mind. This is far hotter than before. He wonders if he's made a terrible mistake, but it's too late now. Just as suddenly, the feeling settles, leaving him to ponder what kind of change this new core will bring. Perhaps more spikes? The transformation begins as a black, liquid-like substance erupts from his skin, clinging to his arms. He groans in annoyance, realizing he forgot to take his clothes off and is about to rip through them yet again. With a determined grin, he decides to test his metal transformation. The substance erupts from him in a violent, splashing wave. He solidifies into a new form, encased in sleek, black armor with sharp angles and a menacing, horned helmet. He marvels at the transformation. The form feels incredibly strong, like a villain from a superhero movie. He realizes he's grown taller, his perspective now much higher than before, and he stares at his hands in disbelief. His mind races, wondering if this powerful new appearance grants him special abilities, much like the giant slime he had just defeated. He specifically recalls the slime's terrifying, blade-like tentacles, and a thrilling thought crosses his mind. Could he wield such weapons himself? Putting the idea to the test, he focuses his will. His arm shifts and reshapes, first into a massive hammer, and then, with another thought, into a long, sharp blade. The sheer coolness of his body changing will fills him with excitement. Eager to show off, he calls out to Mamizu. However, his form has reverted to a simple, small black blob, which slithers towards the happily waiting dog. The sudden appearance of the strange creature startles Mamizu, who yelps in alarm. The blob quickly reassures the dog, explaining that it's him, Yuma, and that he snuck in while his mother was away. Mamizu's barks soften, recognizing his owner's voice. As Mamizu continues to bark, Yuma catches his reflection in a glass door. A chilling thought surfaces. He looks exactly like a monster. For now, however, he pushes that unsettling realization aside. Meanwhile, at the very same time Yuma was battling the giant slime, events were unfolding at the International Dungeon Research Organization. Inside, an emergency meeting of the chief researchers had been convened, bringing together the organization's top minds around a large conference table. He addressed the assembled experts, his voice echoing in the grand hall. As they all knew, an unprecedented and serious situation had occurred. The Orpheus tablet had been displaying abnormal events for 4 consecutive days, with several of its crystalline ores shattering. Chairman Maya Berger from Israel was the first to speak, her expression severe. She noted that a report from 2 weeks prior had detailed the defeat of a Black Duke for the first time in 3 years. What she found unbelievable, however, was the subsequent defeat of 4 lords in such rapid succession. The discussion quickly grew heated. Physicist James Bright of the USA pointed accusingly, demanding to know why they hadn't received any information and questioning if some country was hiding a large-scale exploration. Across from him, biologist Lee Howren of China bristled, asking if Bright was making baseless accusations against his country. Leaning on his hand, archaeologist Ahmad Tahir from Egypt contemplated the facts. The breaking of the red, blue, yellow, and green ores signified that 4 dungeons had been conquered almost simultaneously. He murmured to himself, wondering about the motive behind such an act. The argument between the American and Chinese representatives intensified. Bright insisted that if the U.S. wasn't responsible, it must be China. Lee Howren shot back that hiding information was an American specialty, his words sharp with indignation. A calmer voice cut through the tension. Physicist Ethan Noble from Australia raised a hand, posing a logical counterpoint. He explained that to enter 4 dungeons at once and delve deep enough to conquer them would necessitate a vast number of seekers. He questioned if such a feat was truly possible. He reminded them of a past event in America where a lord was defeated by 15 seekers, a group that included the strongest in the world, Flame Emperor Albert. Even with that overwhelming force, there were 7 casualties. To replicate that near the 100th floor in 4 places at once, he concluded, was impossible. His logic led him to a new conclusion. He mused aloud that perhaps their core assumption was wrong from the very beginning. A female colleague exclaimed that there was no other explanation for the ores breaking, while James Bright leaned forward, asking what assumption he meant. The female researcher elaborated on their theory. The ores on the tablet were arranged by color, and they had always assumed that monsters from dungeons of a certain color corresponded to the ore of that same color. This seemed to hold true, as the recently defeated lords and dukes were indeed from the red, blue, yellow, and green dungeons. She then drew their attention to the final piece of the puzzle. The black ore had broken 2 weeks ago. This strongly suggested that the Black Dungeon, a place known to be especially mysterious and unresearched, had also been conquered. At the meeting, a dissenting voice emerged. One of the experts argued forcefully that no country allows anyone to enter the Black Dungeon without explicit permission, casting doubt on the entire theory. His argument, however, was immediately countered. That rule only applies to managed dungeons, leaving open the possibility of newly discovered, unreported ones. The female researcher with the ponytail elaborated on this point, addressing Ethan's theory directly. She conceded it was reasonable to think there are unknown seekers, but questioned where one could find any capable of reaching a dungeon's 100th floor, as all excellent seekers are closely managed. She stressed that this theoretical person not only found a new Black Dungeon, but also defeated its duke and continued to conquer others in quick succession. Meanwhile, far from the tense meeting, Yuma Mitaka sat at home, petting Mamizu. He mused that while it was just speculation, it was the only explanation that made sense. This unknown seeker, he realized, had already defeated 4 lords and must be on par with, or perhaps even stronger than, the world's most powerful seeker groups. Back at the research facility, the female researcher allowed a small, knowing smile, suggesting her theory might not be completely wrong. Just then, the doors flew open. The skeptical researcher scoffed at the interruption, declaring it ridiculous that such a person could exist, as Ethan Noble rushed in, apologizing but insisting he had urgent news. His news was displayed for all to see. On a monitor showing several large, crystalline gems, the black one, representing the Black King, began to crack and shatter. Ethan's voice rang out, announcing that one of the 6 kings had been defeated. The conqueror in question, however, was simply relaxing. Yuma commented to a confused Mamizu that the big slime they had fought was tough, much stronger than the colored variants. Then, with a proud grin, he declared that he himself had been even stronger. Yuma Mitaka starts his morning with a wide yawn, recalling the previous day's battle. He'd used up his entire stock of cooling sprays and burners to defeat the huge slime. As he steps outside, he considers the possibility of another strange creature appearing. His dog, Mamizu, is unusually energetic. For over a year, Mamizu had barked every morning at the presence of slime. But today, something is different. He looks towards the familiar spot in his yard, but finds it completely empty. The ground is undisturbed. The hole that has plagued him for so long is simply gone. He stares, utterly bewildered. His confusion quickly turns to panic as he scans the area. He shouts into the morning air, demanding to know where the hole went. Falling to his knees, he pats the solid ground. He remembers how the hole would always reappear no matter how many times he filled it. Now, not a trace remains. A realization dawns on him. It must be because he killed the huge slime. That creature must have been a boss all along. He tries to look on the bright side. At least he won't have to wake up so early anymore. He figures Mamizu will also be glad that the hole is finally gone. Moving through his morning routine in a daze, getting dressed, and eating breakfast, the full weight of the situation settles in. He is free. With the hole gone, his life will be less hectic. He can take his time eating and won't have to rush to school. As he walks, he continues to list the benefits. He wasn't making any money from the ordeal. His clothes will no longer be shredded, and with fewer expenses, he'll have more allowance. Despite the logical positives, an unexpected emotion surfaces. He admits to himself that it's not as if he wanted someone to praise him for his efforts, but there's an undeniable feeling of something left unsaid. He continues his walk, a profound sense of emptiness washing over him. He cannot understand this feeling of loss. His somber thoughts are shattered by a cheerful voice calling out, "Morning." Startled, he turns to see Kid Ichinos. She remarks that he's up early today. Surprised by her sudden appearance, he manages a greeting in return. He is met by Kid Ichinos, who expresses concern, having heard he was up very late. She asks if he managed to get any sleep, but he quickly denies it, though his answer doesn't seem to convince her. She seems to let it go, remarking that it's a relief he's up early for a change. Internally, he knows he can't possibly explain that fighting a massive slime kept him up so late, so he simply dismisses her comment, thinking that he just overslept. He then tells her that she won't have to worry about his tardiness anymore. With the dungeon gone, he explains he won't be late again. His statement leaves Kid looking puzzled. Later, back in his room, Yuma sits at his desk, lost in thought. His gaze falls upon his university acceptance papers. He reflects on how he only took the entrance exam on the advice of others, and now, with the documents in hand, a new chapter of his life is set to begin in the spring. Looking up from the papers, a profound question surfaces in his mind. Is he truly okay with living like this? He collapses onto his bed, grappling with a deep-seated feeling of aimlessness. He has never had any real dreams or anything he truly wanted to do, leading to a shallow interest in everything. He sees himself as a person with no motivation, constantly bluffing, a realization that only deepens his sense of inadequacy. However, as he picks up his phone, a small, wry laugh escapes him. He realizes his search history is completely filled with dungeon-related topics, from magic gems and seeker income to the price of magic ore. The search results trigger a flood of memories. For an entire year, he had spent most of his time toiling away in that small dungeon. He acknowledges to himself that while his motives may not have been admirable, he poured everything he had into it, day after day. He considers that his past self would have cynically dismissed such an effort as chasing an unrealistic dream, thinking the world had nothing to do with him. But now, after everything, he can confidently say he reaches out, a new resolve hardening his gaze. The path forward is no longer uncertain. With this newfound determination, he turns to his phone, searching for the place Kid and Luie had chosen for their future. The SDI, the Seeker Training Institution, located in the semi-government Sector 3. He delves deeper into the institution's details. Established 2 years ago, it is now in its 3rd term and recruits students twice a year. More than just a school, it's a research facility that was the first in Japan to successfully capture monsters. It conducts daily research on dungeons and monsters, even developing cages and artificial dungeons using magic gems. He continues reading, learning that the institution's purpose is to discover and cultivate talent through a 6-month curriculum. However, a midterm examination is held every 2 months, and those who fail are expelled. He grimaces slightly, acknowledging how strict their standards are. Despite the strict requirements, he begins preparing his application. For the self-promotion class, he must list his strengths. With the heading, "I'll become a seeker," he starts with his first power, metal transformation, an ability obtained from a metal slime that he believes will be a useful asset. He continues to elaborate on the power's defensive capabilities. The metal form is resistant to the 4 elements: fire, lightning, wind, and water. He considers its defense to be almost invincible, though he admits he doesn't know its precise limits. He then moves on to his second unique power, one obtained from the huge slime. This ability allows him to change parts of his body into weapons, a feat he's never seen any other seeker perform, not even on dungeon streams. And there's a third aspect to this power as well. He visualizes the complex process. First, he transforms into his metal form. From there, by visualizing a gel-like constitution, he can morph his body into a liquid metal slime. This liquid metal form, he muses, would be incredibly useful for conquering dangerous dungeons and entering narrow spaces. Having listed all his strengths, he turns his thoughts to his weaknesses, realizing the first one is quite problematic. The problematic weakness suddenly dawns on him with chilling clarity. His metal transformation comes from a black dungeon. Anyone who sees it will know he entered one without authorization. He realizes with a jolt of panic that he'll be exposed for breaking the law. Frantically checking the Tokyo branch and international dungeon regulations, he confirms that entering black dungeons is strictly regulated and violating these laws is a serious crime, far more severe than simply losing a license. He continued to list his weaknesses. His second was his inability to use magic, as his mana index remained at 0. No matter how strong his mental state was, he couldn't defeat monsters from the depths of a dungeon without it. The third, and likely biggest problem, was the absolute requirement for becoming a professional seeker. One must join a government-authorized organization to enter a dungeon's deeper levels. Individuals were strictly forbidden. He leaned his head on his hand, realizing that if joining an organization was necessary, he should aim for a dungeoneering corporation. That was precisely why he was applying to the Seeker Training Institution. His brief moment of clarity soured into despair. He couldn't believe he was only realizing this now, after the entrance exam had just ended. He was at a loss for what to do. He sat at his desk, phone in hand, when a thought suddenly struck him. He recalled Keed mentioning that she was studying for the SDI exam just this morning. This meant the exam hadn't been held yet. A glimmer of hope appeared. He found her at school. Though the entrance exam date was still unconfirmed, applications were still being accepted. He called out to Keed, who turned, surprised to see him at her classroom door. He quickly approached, asking for a moment of her time. He then did the unthinkable, bowing deeply before her. He had a favor to ask, he explained, stunning Keed in his silence. He wanted her to teach him how to study. She was utterly bewildered by the sudden change of heart, questioning why he'd asked this when he had already gotten into a university. He admitted that was more or less true. She couldn't believe it, exclaiming that in their 18 years as childhood friends, he had never once asked for something like this. She wondered aloud if it was really him. He explained his reasoning. He wanted to learn more about dungeons, and he had heard that the SDI had extended its application deadline. She processed his words, asking if he was truly serious about going to the SDI. She reminded him that he had once told her there was no way he could become a messiah. As he remained kneeling in apology, she conceded that while his remorse was good, his request was completely unexpected. He looked up, his expression firm. He insisted he was serious, explaining that he had been thinking things over and was genuinely interested in pursuing this path. He wanted to do his best. Then, with a hint of vulnerability, he asked if he was too late. He listens as Keed kneels before him, her expression serious. She tells him it's never too late to try his best, but acknowledges that the time until the entrance exam is limited. However, she explains that SDI places more emphasis on aptitude tests than written ones. Therefore, if he studies until he drops, his chances of passing the written portion might not be 0. She smiles brightly, confident in his resolve, and asks if he feels up to the challenge, certain that he won't start complaining. He looks back, a bead of sweat on his cheek, his expression a mixture of anxiety and determination. With renewed vigor, he declares that he'll do his best. Keed immediately puts him to work, vowing to drill everything he needs to know into his head. A montage of intense study sessions follows, showing towering stacks of books and late nights, until only 3 days remain. On the day of the exam, they arrive at the SDI Seeker Training Institution in Setagaya, Tokyo. Dressed in winter coats, Yuma confirms with Keed that she'll be at the 4th tower for her exam, while the Messiah exam venue is at the 2nd tower. They wish each other the best of luck. Inside, while waiting, she asks if he's sure he doesn't want to tell Iwasama Luie that he's there. Yuma grits his teeth and insists there's no need, making her promise not to say anything until he passes. He mutters that their rivalry since childhood can't be helped, telling her to shut up. He walks away from the testing room, sighing with relief. The written test went smoother than he expected, a result he attributes entirely to Keed's Spartan training methods. His relief is short-lived as he considers what's next. The main events, the mana measuring and the practical test, are still to come. He worries, recalling that he couldn't find much information about the practical test, and even Keed didn't know much, leaving him unprepared. An examiner's voice then explains the next phase. For this test, he will have to defeat one of the monsters they keep on site. After doing so, his mana gain rate will be checked. Moments later, he and Keed stand with another applicant, a young woman with a high ponytail. She explains that the test uses red slimes from the red dungeon, noting that defeating one easily raises a person's mana, making it perfect for the check. Keed expresses her admiration for the girl's knowledge, who replies that she was just happy to find someone else her age. She formally introduces herself as Kagurazaka, an 18-year-old third-year student from Itaka High. She expresses surprise that they are the same age, explaining that the entrance exam accepts people up to age 30, and most of the other applicants she saw during the written test were older. He gratefully accepts her offer. Kagurazaka explains that she knows a thing or two about mana and the entrance exam, and seeing their chance encounter as fate, she offers to share some information while they wait. However, she cautions him that her explanation won't help change his test results if he's trying to raise his qualities. He internally questions if she is some kind of mana expert. As they proceed, a staff member instructs them to take a paper and move to the next room, noting that the mana index readings for both of them are 0. Even the advanced measuring devices is shown nothing, just as Yuma expected. She tells him there's no problem with starting at 0. She explains that what matters isn't how much mana he has now, but how much he can gain from this point on. She continues, elaborating that mana is a seeker's lifeblood. A large amount is needed to use stronger magic for longer periods. A seeker's strength lies in their mana reserves, which can be used to create barriers that protect the body and even reflect bullets. Her explanation delves deeper into the mechanics of mana acquisition. The amount of mana gained from defeating the same monster varies from person to person, a metric called the mana gain rate. As more mana is gained, it eventually reaches a plateau, the upper mana limit, which also differs for each individual. If this limit is too low, one cannot become a seeker. To determine his own rate, a staff member instructs him to use a provided knife to stab the red slime, and then have his mana index measured again. The weight of this information settles on him, and a wave of anxiety washes over his face. He worries aloud. What if his mana doesn't go up at all? Kagurazaka, looking concerned, tries to reassure him, saying he'll be fine and can still pass even if the value is low. He asks if she's really not joking. She insists it's true, explaining that some people have a low mana gain rate but a high upper mana limit. He stands in silence, absorbing her words. She concludes that these qualities, the gain rate and the upper limit, vary from person to person. Her explanation strikes a chord. He realizes that's right. He's been defeating metal slimes for over a year. He steels himself, thinking that his determination must count as a quality. He resolves not to get cold feet now, remembering his promise to himself to do his best. His moment of resolve is interrupted by an announcement echoing through the corridor. All seeker candidates are instructed that the contents of the practical test will now be explained. He and the other candidates were led into a briefing area. A staff member stood before them, his back to their perspective, and began the instructions. He urged them all to listen carefully, adding a stark warning that there was a possibility of injury during this test. The staff member then revealed their destination as he stood before a massive, high-tech doorway. He explained that what lay ahead was the only facility in Japan containing an artificial dungeon, and it was here that the practical test would be held. Within an experimental facility known as the Artificial Dungeon, a place designed to replicate dungeon environments for research, an official lays out the terms of the next test. He explains that beyond the door to the first underground floor, the examinees will find a box containing a ball. Their task is simple: retrieve the ball within the allotted time. However, he warns them that monsters will be released and they must be avoided. The assembled group of examinees murmurs in confusion. They question the instruction to avoid the monsters, wondering why they cannot attack them and what they are supposed to do with their weapons. He clarifies that bringing weapons and attacking are strictly prohibited because the test is not about combat. Talent and equipment are useless without the courage to back them up. The key to this challenge, he stresses, is speed and the fortitude to run through a dungeon without being intimidated. He reveals the monsters are merely the same red slimes used for mana measurement. Not a major threat, but caution is still advised. With the explanation concluded, he announces the test will now commence, with examinees being called by their number. While waiting in line, Kagurazaka leans over to Yuma with a confident smile. She reminds him that, just as she predicted, the monsters are only red slimes, suggesting the test will be easy. Yuma agrees that it certainly seems that way. Suddenly, a horrifying, guttural scream erupts from the direction of the dungeon entrance. The sound startles the entire queue of examinees. Yuma's eyes widen in shock as he realizes the noise came from within the artificial dungeon, leaving him to wonder what could possibly be happening inside. Inside, a lone red slime trembles under a spotlight, making a bold declaration. It is a terror of the artificial dungeon. It is quickly joined by a multitude of others. Together, they announce themselves as the Red Slime Army, boasting of their power to frighten even crying children into silence. The true scale of their force is revealed. A massive, seemingly endless tide of red slimes flooding the corridor. They issue a collective, imaginary challenge, daring anyone to stop their innumerable horde. The overwhelming wave of slimes crashes over the test takers. One examinee is swarmed, crying out for help, while another turns and flees in panic. Watching the chaos, Kagurazaka grits her teeth in frustration, muttering that this has gone too far. Just outside the dungeon's exit, a defeated examinee lies sprawled on the ground. Two staff members look on impassively, with one announcing the final time, 8 minutes and 30 seconds. The defeated examinee is helped away by two staff members as a third announces his time, 2 minutes and 58 seconds, and declares his failure. Nearby, Kagurazaka clenches her fists, her expression a mask of intense frustration. With the previous attempt concluded, a staff member's voice echoes, calling for the next examinee to enter the dungeon where the small red slimes wait just beyond the threshold. At the sound, the slimes inside jolt in unison, their simple forms trembling with what appears to be shock and alarm. The next examinee is Yuma Mitaka. He stands ready, his expression tense as a wave of nervousness washes over him, making him wonder what truly awaits him inside. His anxiety is fueled by what he witnessed. Some participants fled screaming, while others were so paralyzed they had to be rescued. He recalls that even the ever-confident Kagurazaka returned from her attempt looking pale and shaken. As a heavy door slides shut behind him, sealing him inside a sterile corridor, a single thought consumes him. If the test was that difficult for her, he questions if he can even survive it. He takes his first steps into the dungeon and immediately notices a strange, lumpy mass clinging to the wall of the corridor ahead. Holding a small white cube, he wonders if possessing the object will trigger an attack from the strange formation. Deciding to proceed, he cautiously walks past, speaking to the mass as if asking for permission to pass. He glances over his shoulder to find the clump has remained completely still. He finds its lack of aggression peculiar, noting that it doesn't seem poised for action at all. Then it dawns on him. He realizes the clump must be the horde of slimes, completely exhausted after dealing with the previous examinees. He concludes that Kagurazaka must have worn them out, and now they are simply resting. He finishes his test to an announcement of his time. 2 minutes and 28 seconds, the fastest clear so far. Kagurazaka enthusiastically congratulates him, but he deflects the praise, insisting he was just lucky that his turn came after hers. With the exam officially over, she waves goodbye, expressing her hope that they both passed. He waves back as they part ways in the crowd. Now alone, he looks out over the city, feeling he's done all he could. All that remains is to wait for the results. He checks his phone to find a message from Keed, who tells him her own exam is taking longer than expected and that he can go home. When she asks how he did, he simply replies with a thumbs-up sticker. 1 week later, a letter arrives. He holds it with trembling hands, his face a mask of pure anxiety. The letter brings good news. He erupts in celebration, shouting that he passed. His mother calls out for him to keep it down, though she congratulates him all the same. He apologizes, still caught up in the moment of triumph. But his elation is short-lived as a heavy realization dawns on him. He hasn't forgotten, but he knows he must now explain his decision to his parents, who still believe he is going to the university he originally chose. He approaches his mother as she works at a desk. She asks what's wrong, chiding him to get his act together since he'll be in university soon. He steels himself, telling her that he needs to talk to both of them about something important once his father gets home. Her expression turns serious, sensing the gravity of his tone. Later, facing his parents, he makes his announcement. This spring, he will not be going to university. He is going to the Seeker Training Institution. The declaration hangs in the air, met with the stunned, silent shock of his mother and father. Her shock gives way to confusion. She processes her son's sudden growth, a stark contrast to the boy she knows who is always online, lazing around, or playing with Mamazu. She asks what a Seeker Training Institution is. Yuma explains it's a school that trains students to become Seekers, and graduation is required to get a job at a dungeoneering corporation. From off-screen, his father's voice joins the conversation, asking Yuma if he truly wants to become a Seeker. He points out that his son has never mentioned this interest before, cautioning that mere interest can only get one so far. He then reveals a crucial piece of information as they sit at the table. He has already taken and passed the Training Institute's exam. His mother erupts, demanding to know why he didn't consult them, how much the exam fee was, and why he acted without their permission. He apologizes for not saying anything sooner. He explains that the entrance fee was low and the tuition is free. However, as at a boarding school, he must cover his own living expenses and study materials. The program lasts 6 months, with midterm exams every 2 months, and failure to perform well will result in expulsion. His father's expression remains stern. He questions the inherent danger of a Seeker's job and asks if Yuma will truly be able to handle it after graduating. Yuma insists he is serious about this path and wanted to prove his commitment by passing the exam before discussing it with him. He continues, acknowledging that he has heard people lose their lives in this line of work. The memory of his own clothes being shredded during the fight in his yard serves as a stark reminder that the path is far from safe. Despite knowing it will be a difficult and dangerous journey, he affirms that it won't stop him and that he has already begun studying to prepare. His father presses the point, asking why he couldn't have pursued this after graduating from university. Flustered, Yuma admits he never had anything he truly wanted to do, so he was just going to university by default. Now that he has a goal, he feels he wouldn't put much effort into his university studies anyway. He feels the tension rise. He can see the anger in his mother's eyes and assumes she's about to lecture him for always slacking off. He also imagines his father thinks he's being naive. As he wonders how he can possibly persuade them, his mother quietly speaks his name. But it is his father who speaks, his tone softening unexpectedly. He observes that Yuma has never opened up to them about his passions, his interests, or his thoughts. Not until this moment. A small, gentle smile forms on his face. He admits that his son has surprised him, realizing that for the first time, Yuma has found something he truly wishes to pursue. He thanked his son for being honest. Visibly moved, Yuma could only manage to say his father's name in response. His father then laid out his conditions. He told Yuma that as long as his mind was made up, he should pursue his goal. However, he advised him not to withdraw from the university, but to take a leave of absence instead. Only after successfully completing his training and becoming a seeker should he formally leave the university. Yuma, stunned by this unexpected support, could barely believe what he was hearing. Overcome with emotion, he beamed with gratitude, thanking his father and promising not to let him down. He then bolted out of the room with a triumphant shout. As he ran off, his mother expressed her lingering doubts, questioning if this was truly a good idea and suggesting university would be a better path. His father, sipping his drink, simply stated that the choice was ultimately not up to them. He watched his son disappear down the street, reflecting on the boy's determination. He understood that Yuma had been running on this path long before they realized it, and that nothing they could say would change his mind. All they could do now was offer their full support, so he could keep running as hard as possible. And so, with his family's blessing, time passed. By April, Yuma stood at the entrance ceremony for the Seeker Training Institution, brimming with excitement. He was accompanied by two familiar faces, Keed Ichinos and Luie Awasama. Luie urged him to hurry up, while Keed commented on his obvious eagerness. As they walked together through the cherry blossoms, Luie expressed surprise, admitting she hadn't known Yuma wanted to become a seeker. She asked Keed if she had helped him study for the entrance exam. Keed confirmed that she had, adding that she figured Yuma could succeed if he truly applied himself. Luie then beamed, delighted that the three of them were all together again. She turned to Keed, asking if it wasn't great. Keed's serious expression softened into a warm, genuine smile as she agreed, admitting she was glad too. With his friends by his side, Yuma looked ahead with renewed purpose. He felt he was finally standing next to Luie and Keed again, ready to work alongside them from now on. As they approached the main building, Luie and Keed wondered aloud what would happen that day, noting that class assignments were apparently based on the entrance exam results. As the new students gather for their assignments, Luie stands among them with a confident smirk, holding a sign designating him as a member of the prestigious Class 1. Beside him, Keed shares the same assignment, her expression a mixture of surprise and uncertainty. Separated from them in the crowd, Yuma's face is a mask of disbelief. He stares down at his own sign, which reads Class 3, the single thought, huh? Echoing his utter shock and confusion. A wave of shock washes over Yuma Mitaka as he processes the new information. He questions if the classes are truly decided by entrance exam scores. The realization dawns on him. Class 1 must be for the top performers, which means his placement in Class 3 brands him as an underachiever from the very beginning. His new classmates begin to introduce themselves. A man with a white headband and a confident grin waves, identifying himself as Ryosuke Ishiya, and at 30 years old, the eldest student present. Beside him, a younger man with glasses and a bowl haircut introduces himself as Hamanaka, age 23. Ishiya cheerfully declares that regardless of their ages, they're all underachievers together in Class 3, so they should get along. In response, Yuma states his own name and age, 18. Ishiya remarks that he must be the youngest of the group. He sinks into thought, recalling his past self who would dismiss everything with apathy, calling life unfair. He contrasts this with Luie and Keed, who study diligently every day, working towards their dreams. The difference between them now feels immense. His contemplation is interrupted by Hamanaka, who shares a rumor he heard. Class 1 has two students who achieve the highest mana index in history. He identifies one of them as Kagurazaka Cheyenne, the daughter of the famous Kagurazaka Pharmaceuticals. Yuma is stunned, realizing she is in a completely different league. Ishiya adds that the other record breaker is probably the high school student who caught Elsie's attention and was featured on the news for helping in a red dungeon. Yuma's eyes widen as he recognizes the name, Rue Amisawa. He glances over at his childhood friend, who offers a gentle smile, and the vast gap between their talent and effort feels wider than ever. Hamanaka then mentions another rumor he heard, that among the three classes, there is a student whose mana index is 0. A nervous sweat breaks out on Yuma's face as he slowly unfolds his own results paper. The number is stark and undeniable. Mana index, 0%. The revelation spreads quickly. Hamanaka shouts in disbelief, asking if Mitaka's mana index is truly 0. Kagurazaka overhears, noting that red slimes are perfect for boosting mana. Yuma internally despairs, thinking that even with her advice, his index remains unchanged. His classmates demand to see the proof. He looks down, dejected, as Ishiya confirms the score. Ishiya finds it amazing in a strange way and questions how he even managed to pass the exams, since a score like that would normally lead to rejection. Yuma quickly defends himself, insisting that he received good grades on both the written and practical portions. Ishiya claps him on the back, trying to lift his spirits. He tells him not to get so down, pointing out that even if their own levels weren't 0, they're still quite low. Hamanaka displays his mana index of 0.19, and Ishiya shows his own 0.23, concluding that in the end, they aren't so different from Mitaka after all. He insists that it's still too early for them to give up. Acknowledging that their growth might be slow, he suggests this could simply mean their overall mana capacity is higher. He continues his encouragement to a stunned Yuma, explaining that a gap at the starting line is irrelevant. As long as they cross the finish line, That's all that matters. Inspired, the trio raises their fists in unison, declaring themselves late bloomers and proclaiming that the real contest is only just beginning. Their new resolve is immediately put to the test in combat training against artificially bred slimes. Following this, the three dedicate themselves completely. They engage in intense study of dungeon-related laws and, on their days off, venture into the blue dungeon to subdue monsters. Seeking to do even more, Yuma approaches two staff members to request the use of the artificial dungeon for solo practice. One of the men, James Bright, notes his dedication and grants him permission. Inside, he faces a horde of slimes alone. He reaffirms his belief in being a late bloomer, acknowledging his numbers are the lowest of his friends and that he must push himself harder. With fierce determination, he commands his mana index to grow, but his efforts yield nothing. A results screen displays their current levels: Ashi at 41.23, Hamanaka at 35.62, and Yuma, devastatingly, still at 0.00. Yuma hangs his head in despair. His friends react to the unchanged number. Hamanaka dryly remarks on Yuma's unique talent for staying at 0. Ashiya, however, turns serious, stating that all three of them are in trouble. He reveals that if they don't raise their mana index above 50 by the midterm exams, they'll be forced to leave. The weight of this new reality settles in. The poor growth of the mana index is not a problem exclusive to them. Throughout their third group classroom, more and more students are beginning to show signs of discouragement. He clenches his fist, a stark realization settling in. This is a world where both effort and talent are necessary for survival. His thoughts are interrupted by a notification on his phone. It's a message from Keed, asking how he's doing and if he's trying his best. She follows up with an encouraging sticker of a cartoon bear flexing its bicep. The message steals his resolve. Looking out over the city, he vows to himself that he must somehow get through the midterm exams and graduate from SDI alongside Luie and Keed. Meanwhile, at the International Dungeon Research Organization, James Bright asks Ethan Noble if he has received any new information. Ethan, seated calmly, replies that there is still no information about the Black King anywhere in the world. James Bright appears taken aback by the lack of intelligence, but Ethan simply smiles, stating that he has no doubts about the stone tablet. He continues his report, explaining that they've been asked to compile opinions about artificial dungeons and submit them. He specifically mentions the Haku dungeon, which causes Ethan's expression to sour instantly. James asks him not to make such an obviously displeased face. James presses on, detailing a series of accidents related to artificial dungeons worldwide. He warns that if they don't find the cause, it could lead to even more serious situations. Ethan smiles coldly, retorting that it's their own fault for messing with something like that. He leans back, elaborating that he was opposed to artificial dungeons from the very beginning. He questions the presumption of trying to artificially recreate dungeons when so much about them remains unknown, and warns that putting too much faith in science will lead to a painful day of reckoning. 2 months pass. It is now August. At SDI, students gather for a joint class dungeon exploration training exercise. Awasama Ruei greets Yuma, confirming that she heard they're going down to the 3rd underground level of the artificial blue dungeon today. She explains that their group will consist of 15 people selected from the first group, confirming that she was selected. Kagurazuka Shine joins them, asking if Keed and other members from her group are going too. Ruei confirms this, and Shine notes that with 2 savior candidates present, it feels like the aspiring seekers are there to act as their protectors. She explains the objective of their training exercise. They're to proceed to the 3rd level of the dungeon, using a map, and bring back the magic stones. Yuma quietly considers that in actual dungeons, one often doesn't know the terrain or the route. His attention is drawn to Awasama Ruei's sword. She identifies it as a magic-enhanced weapon, embedded with a magic gem that allows her to channel mana and use powerful magic. Ruei then brings up a rumor she heard about him absorbing an unprocessed ruby, confirming she plans to test her new weapon during the training. The magic gem is a crimson silver ruby, acquired from the red dungeon. It is a treasure with a mana index of 700, valued at 14 million yen. He grimaces, realizing that Ruei's mana index must be over 700 for her to use the weapon so easily. As she waves goodbye and walks off, he resolves that he must try harder, or the gap between them will only continue to widen. He decides to head to the monitor room to watch the selected group. Meanwhile, in the SDI building's artificial dungeon basement, within the 5th floor research area, a group of researchers observes the proceedings. One of them, a skeptical older man, asks if the others can hear the sounds and vibrations from the training on the upper floors. His colleague dismisses the concern, stating it would only be a problem if the ground were flimsy. The 2 researchers stand before a large enclosure containing massive, insectoid monsters. The younger one reports that the creature called Adamus is calm, and Persephone, who was excited earlier, has also settled down. The older researcher remarks that the reinforced glass should hold even if they get rowdy, but that there is another problem. The problem he alluded to is a strange, veined egg held in a separate containment unit, which Ethan Noble and James Bright are observing. Ethan explains they have been monitoring it and have confirmed faint movements inside, leaving no doubt it's a monster's egg. James expresses concern about the danger if it hatches, but Ethan admits they don't even know what kind of monster it is. A nearby monitor displays a steady electrocardiogram reading, A voice explains that the egg was found on the 36th floor of the green dungeon, which is not a very deep level. The voice concludes that even if it hatches, it will only be a juvenile, so it should be fine. Suddenly, on another monitor, the two researchers from before are seen reacting with confusion. The electrocardiogram displayed behind them has become wildly erratic. The image on the screen erupts into violence, as both researchers' heads explode in a spray of blood. In the sterile basement laboratory, dark blood spatters and pools across the pristine white floor, a grim testament to the violent event that just transpired. Meanwhile, in a separate monitor room, an instructor stands at a podium before a crowd of students, announcing that they will now observe the mock training of a selected group. He reminds them that dungeons are dangerous places, emphasizing that survival isn't just about defeating monsters, but also about returning safely. He instructs the observing students to learn from this session, noting that some of them may unfortunately have to leave after the midterm evaluation. On the large screens, the mock training begins. Kagurazaka, Shine, and Iwasama Ruie move with explosive speed and power, their enhanced weapons leaving trails of energy as they engage their targets. Watching from his seat, Yuma Mitaka crosses his arms with a confident smirk, clearly impressed by their overwhelming display of skill. His classmates murmur amongst themselves. Ryosuke Ashiya remarks that he'd heard magical enhancement weapons require a specific aptitude to use. Hamanaka adds to this, saying he heard that Iwasama and Kagurazaka have an incredibly high aptitude, to the point where they're considered practically monsters. Yuma's gaze then shifts to another screen displaying key to Chinos. He thinks to himself that the training seems overwhelmingly one-sided, a complete breeze for someone like Ruie. Suddenly, the room is plunged into chaos as emergency lights flash and a piercing alarm blares. A recorded voice announces that a problem has occurred and instructs everyone to evacuate. The students, including a startled Yuma, look around in confusion. A voice over the intercom urges calm and announces that the evacuation will begin from the front row. Yuma looks toward the monitors, a worried expression on his face. He realizes that the participants inside the dungeon don't seem to hear the alarm or understand the situation at all. Inside the dungeon, the world is silent. Kagurazaka and Iwasama stand with other students, their expressions serious and focused. The ground beneath them is fractured, but they remain oblivious to the emergency unfolding just outside their training zone. She stood frozen as the world around her shattered into rubble. In the monitor room, Kita Chinos watched the screen in abject horror, her gloved hand flying to her mouth as the catastrophic collapse unfolded within the mock dungeon. The image on the screen flickered, revealing the full extent of the chaos. As Yuma Mitaka stared, his eyes wide with shock, he saw not only Kagurazaka, but another student, fallen and motionless amidst the debris. He bolted from his spot without a word, pushing past the viewing barrier. His classmates cried out in confusion, with Ryosuke Ashiya demanding he come back while Hamanaka questioned where he was going, but he didn't stop. He clenched his fist, a grimace twisting his face. For a fleeting moment, he had seen the face of the student who fell. There was no way he could have mistaken it. Elsewhere, unseen by the others, Amasawa Rei offered a faint, knowing smile. Amidst the blare of a warning sound, a student cries out that Ichinos has fallen. Iwasama Ruie quickly takes command, urging her classmates to remain calm and assess the situation. She deduces that the alarm signifies trouble below and announces her intention to descend and help, instructing everyone else to evacuate. Her expression hardens with resolve. She tells the others not to worry, believing it will be much faster if she goes to help alone. However, Kagurazaka Shine steps forward, insisting that if the gap in abilities is the standard for going, then she will go as well. Another student acknowledges the vast difference in skill between them and Iwasama. Relenting, Iwasama instructs the remaining students to escape and inform the security explorers of their descent, receiving a quick agreement and a wish for their safety. Kagurazaka thanks her, stating it is her duty to help her classmates. Without hesitation, both she and Iwasama leap down into the chasm. As they plunge into the darkness, Kagurazaka notes the poor visibility and declares she will illuminate their path with magic. They land in a scene of devastation below, but the missing students are nowhere to be found. Kagurazaka questions their absence, reasoning they should be nearby. Iwasama's sharp eyes catch something on the fractured ground, and she points to a grim discovery, a trail of blood. Her face sets into a grim mask. She voices her suspicion that they did not leave on their own. The evidence points to a chilling conclusion. They were injured and then dragged away. The realization sparks a sense of urgency. Keed is in danger. They must hurry towards the dark, foreboding passage that lies ahead. Meanwhile, at a different location, Yuma Mitaka tries to discreetly enter the dungeon, hoping to blend in with the crowd. His attempt is immediately thwarted by a security guard who spots him and demands to know what he is doing. Flustered, Yuma explains that he is worried about a friend who went inside. The guard sternly rebuffs him, ordering him to follow the teacher's instructions and evacuate to safety. He assures Yuma that the students inside will be rescued by their teams. His words do little to comfort Yuma. A grim understanding dawns on him. While the security explorers will perform a rescue, they won't prioritize a specific search for Keed. He realizes that if that's the case, he cannot leave her fate to anyone else. He has to go. He stood amidst the facility's bustle, his mind racing. While others loaded equipment destined for the dungeon, he focused on a single problem: finding a way inside without being noticed. His gaze fell upon the carts being prepared, a thought beginning to form. The idea solidified into a plan. If he could blend in with the equipment, he could slip past security. Without a moment's hesitation, he crouched down between two large transport trolleys, concealing himself from view. Elsewhere, within the depths of the facility, a crisis was unfolding. A slender, insectoid creature with a horned head stood ominously as dark, viscous tendrils swirled around its armored form. A man in a dark suit moved with purpose, declaring his intent to liquefy the creature. The being dissolved into a black fluid, which he swiftly collected into a bag. With the monster secured, the man's resolve hardened. He too was on his way to help Keith. The scene shifts to the SDI Internal Artificial Dungeon, Level 5 Research Area. A security team in riot gear surveyed a scene of utter devastation. The walls and floors were splattered with blood and black ichor, the bodies of personnel strewn about. One of the guards stared in disbelief, questioning what could have happened. Two explorers in tactical gear pushed forward. One knelt, confirming the worst. Everyone was dead. His blonde companion pointed toward a massive, shattered enclosure, noting that the reinforced glass was broken and, more alarmingly, there were no monsters inside. The chilling implication dawned on him in an instant. The monsters were outside. Before he could react, a massive, spider-like creature with multiple eyes lunged from the shadows, its maw wide. His partner screamed a warning and charged forward to help, but it was too late. A massive, bladed limb pierced the blonde explorer's torso, lifting him from his feet as he let out a final, agonized cry. Amidst the slaughter, an even larger, more menacing insectoid creature appeared, towering over the chaos. In a distant doorway, the slender creature observed the scene before the new monster launched itself into the fray with terrifying speed. The slender creature stood before the wreckage of a sign, its text confirming the location of the disaster. The SDI Setagaya, a main office, high-risk creature observation lab. It crouched amidst the rubble, its gaze fixed on the massive, spider-like creature that had just burst through the wall. Meanwhile, at an entrance point, a staff member handed a large bag to two security explorers. He instructed them to carry the equipment, which he claimed were enchanted weapons, further inside. One of the explorers strained under the weight, complaining that his shoulder felt like it would pop and noting it was a two-person job. He then apologized to his uncle. Unseen by the explorers, the bag's true contents had its own thoughts on the matter. The small red slime confirmed that the bag was heavy because it was inside. It felt relieved to have snuck in successfully, but was unable to see outside to locate Keed while being transported. It continued to listen from within the bag, piecing together the situation. The slime overheard that everyone was safe for now. One person had fallen through a crumbling floor to the 4th level, and 3 others had gone down to help. As the explorers carried it through a corridor, the slime processed the information. One of the men ordered other personnel to evacuate to the upper levels while they headed for the 4th floor. The slime realized this meant Keed was on the 4th floor and resolved to continue with the plan. They soon arrived at the SDI Internal Artificial Dungeon's 4th underground level, with the explorers wondering where the fallen student was. Suddenly, the zipper on the bag began to give way. The slime panicked, worried that the explorers would think a monster was emerging and would immediately draw their weapons. With a soft pop, the slime squeezed out onto a nearby console. It noted that this was indeed the 4th floor. Though worried about the monster it had heard about, it saw that no one was looking in its direction. Realizing this was the perfect chance to slip away. Their attention, however, was fixed on a figure standing before them. The slime decided to leave the subjugation to the professionals, its priority being to find and help Keed. The explorers stared at the creature, one of them identifying it as a soul mantis. The other was confused, questioning why a monster with a foreign name would be here and recognizing it as a deep realm monster that shouldn't exist without multiple high-level explorers present. Before they could react further, the soul mantis lunged. In a flash of motion, it sliced through the 2 explorers, its bladed limbs moving too fast to be seen. Blood splattered across the walkway as one of the men fell. The surviving explorer, the blonde man, slumped against a railing, gravely wounded. He managed to send out a final report, confirming they had encountered a monster on the 4th basement level and identifying it, without a doubt, as the deep layer monster, Soul Mantis. Elsewhere in the facility, 2 female explorers stand victorious atop a mountain of defeated insectoid monsters. The one with the ponytail complains that she's exhausted and feels gross, urging her companion to hurry onward. The other, wielding a sword, dismisses her friend's fatigue. They briefly discuss their progress, estimating they've taken down about 100 creatures together. As they sprint down a long, metallic corridor, the ponytailed explorer wonders aloud why the SDI lab seems to exclusively collect insect-type monsters, noting that animal and reptile types also exist. She speculates it might be for easier management, but grumbles that she wishes someone had warned her how disgusting they were before they started. Her companion suddenly skids to a halt, her eyes widening in alarm as she senses an unexpected presence ahead. From the shadows emerges a new threat, a creature with the upper torso of a horned woman and the lower body of a monstrous spider. The 2 explorers are frozen in shock at the sight of this powerful being. They both recognize the monster. The ponytailed explorer remembers seeing it in a class. but her sword-wielding friend identifies it with certainty and dread. It is the vicious Arachnne from the Green Dungeon, and it is somehow here inside the facility. She recalls the creature's terrifying ability to manipulate steel threads capable of cutting through anything. Acknowledging that they cannot defeat it in their current state, her resolve hardens. She knows they must press on, because Kid might be just beyond this corridor. Before they can formulate a plan, the Arachnne attacks, unleashing its razor-sharp threads with a flick of its fingers. The steel threads whip through the air, instantly ensnaring the sword-wielding explorer and pinning her against the debris-strewn wall. Both she and her companion are now caught, the threads digging into them and rendering them immobile. Realizing their struggle is useless, the swordswoman grits her teeth in frustration, shouting that they can't do anything and urging her friend to run. She looks past the Arachnne to see another large spider monster blocking the path, understanding they are completely outmatched. With grim determination, she concludes that they must find a different route to save Kid, no matter the cost. The monstrous Arachnne expressed her frustration, lamenting that the facility was like a maze with no clear path forward. As she moved, she touched a surface, recoiling slightly at its unexpected stickiness. Below her, another of her captives, a small, dark slime, struggled futilely against its bonds. The creature was completely wrapped in the same white thread, wondering what this strange substance was that held it so tightly. Inside the ruined structure, the spider-like monster, Arachnne, notices a small, dark slime creature hanging from the ceiling. Amused, she begins poking it, causing the slime to wiggle and cry out for her to stop as it's pulled upwards. The small creature realizes its clothes are getting caught inside the metal it's attached to. To escape, it decides to transform into liquid metal. However, fearing its clothes would tear, it opts for a different strategy, transforming its entire body into a blade. With a flash of light, it successfully escapes in its new sword form, now wielded by Yuma, who has taken on a formidable black and white armored form. The slime sword is pointed at Arachnne. Fuming, Yuma tells the monster she has some nerve for poking and shoving him. He declares that he must save Kid and will end this fight immediately. In response, Arachnne shrieks and lunges forward. She closes the distance in an instant, her many limbs becoming a blur as she attacks, trapping Yuma within a cage of her sharp appendages. He reacts with impossible speed, whipping the slime sword in a fluid arc to deflect the incoming assault. The dark, liquid metal of the blade extends and contorts, effortlessly parrying the monster's attack. Their weapons clash with a deafening clang. A sharp-toothed grin spreads across Yuma's armored face as he assesses his opponent, remarking to himself that she isn't as strong as he had anticipated. He presses his advantage, unleashing a powerful circular slash that shatters Arachne's guard and sends fragments of her monstrous body flying. With the Spider-Woman subjugated and dissolving into particles, Yuma reflects that this is the expected outcome for a training monster. He recalls that the artificial dungeon is filled with such creatures for practice. Shaking his head, he dismisses the idea of searching for loot like a magic stone, refocusing on his true objective, finding Kid quickly. He moves on, entering a new, cavernous section of the facility. As he scans the industrial surroundings, he notices that the concrete floor is riddled with large, unsettling holes. His search comes to a horrifying end. He finds Kid, unconscious and bleeding from a wound on her forehead, held captive in the powerful claws of another massive insectoid monster. Stunned, Yuma can only utter her name. He roars, his voice distorted by the monstrous armor, demanding the creature get away from Kid. Without hesitation, he lunges forward, his armored arm extending into a sharp blade that strikes the insectoid's head. The creature reels but retaliates instantly, its massive pincer-like tail whipping around and slamming into his side. Ignoring the blow, he presses his attack, slicing clean through the monster's midsection. The creature erupts in a shower of dark fluid as its two halves fall apart. His immediate concern shifts back to Kid, who now lies motionless on the fractured ground. He rushes to her side, a wave of panic washing over him as he wonders if she's dead. Kneeling, he finds she is still breathing, and a profound sense of relief floods through him. He sees that she is merely sleeping, completely oblivious to his inner turmoil. As she stirs and murmurs, the monstrous armor retracts from his body, revealing Yuma once more. He calls her name, telling her she's safe now. His imagination takes over. He's seen this kind of scenario before in stories, a classic fantasy trope where a prince comes to the rescue of a princess. He pictures himself as that very prince, sparkling and heroic, reassuring Princess Kid that he is there to save her. Just then, in reality, Kid's eyes flutter open and she weakly utters his name. But what she sees is not a prince. Her waking eyes perceive the terrifying, demonic visage of his armored form looming over her. A piercing scream of pure terror escapes her lips. Her scream shatters his fantasy. He frantically asks what's wrong, urging her to pull herself together. Looking down at his still armored hand, he realizes with a start that his monstrous appearance must have frightened her. Apologizing softly, he resolves to get her to a safe place. His armored form tenses in shock. The massive insectoid creature he thought he had defeated is still alive. As its segmented tail tightens around his waist, he struggles, demanding to be released. The creature's immense weight and grip are too much for the structure. The floor shatters beneath them, and Yuma is dragged screaming into the chasm, plummeting to the level below. Further down the corridor, the sudden crash startles two female explorers. One, wielding a sword, hears the commotion and urges her companion to investigate. They round a corner to find Keed lying unconscious on the ground, and the swordswoman rushes to her side, relieved to find she's still alive. The sword explorer carefully lifts Keed. Her companion, Kagurizuka, agrees they should retreat, but warns that they must move cautiously to avoid monsters, especially another Arachnne. Admitting they have no weapons left, Kagurizuka puts her trust in her partner to secure their escape route, a responsibility the other readily accepts. The long, metallic walkway is now a treacherous path, marred by several large, gaping holes torn through its surface. The floor is a ruin of fractured concrete and twisted rebar, evidence of the overwhelming force that destroyed it. Having crashed onto the level below, Yuma rises from the rubble. He realizes he is on the 5th floor and that a centipede bastard is causing this destruction. His first thought is of his friend. He must hurry back to the 4th floor to save Keed. But before he can make a move, a new presence alerts him. He looks up, startled, his senses on high alert. He's confronted by a chilling sight. A slender, almost regal insectoid figure stands before him, flanked by two enormous centipede-like beasts. Staring at the new arrivals, Yuma can only wonder what manner of creatures these are.